Hi, I'm Caitlin Cadieux. I'm an animator and illustrator.
And I'm Ira Marcks. I write and draw comics. And this is our podcast about the mysterious and magical process of bringing cartoon stories to life.
And in today's episode, I think we're both pretty excited to feel all of our weird, gross, morphing, engorging feelings
Olympic feelings.
Our Olympic-size feelings about Akira. Welcome to Cartoon Feelings.
This is an exciting time for me, Caitlin.
Go on.
This is our first comic book episode.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
We're also in person.
The first one. Yes. That's why it's exciting for me.
Oh, all right.
I don't have anything new to bring to the table, but
yeah,
we're at a table.
Yeah, and
the
I
same
did bring
one.
some comic books.
Oh, that's true.
You brought headphones. Unnecessary for right now.
I'm sorry. I don't know how honest stuff works.
Oh, am I throwing you under the bus?
Yeah.
What else is on our table? There's some seltzers. There's a lot of wires. There's some totes.
I have one laptop and an iPad, and you have a laptop.
Yeah, we're all high tech.
That's everything on the table.
We have a world of information at our fingertips. Yet you wouldn't know it.
You would, because you can't see it. But we told you.
We do have America's greatest invention of all time. Can you hear this on the air? The book.
It's America's greatest invention?
Okay, I'm going to edit that out and say the world's greatest invention. So
no, you have to leave that
I don't have some distorted view of history.
It can't possibly be
America, home of the book. No? Not true?
It might be.
Let me look it up. We have
Google,
computers.
please.
Well, okay. Let's get into it. Comic books.
Yeah, heard of it.
Read them.
Any?
Yeah. I don't know. What's a comic book you've read?
I definitely read comic books. I'm just completely tapped out right now in my brain. But I talked to you recently that I am working my way through Junji Ito's work.
Yeah.
So his oeuvre. And it's going very slowly because
that is a very dark place to start.
Super creepy. Yeah, who knew? But like for the longest time, I feel like everybody knows who he is, and you just know you'll absorb like his horrifying drawings from just randomly showing up on the internet places.
Right.
And then one day I was like, okay, I'm just gonna actually open this up.
Dig in.
And
yeah.
I have had to take break. I don't know if I'm just like
it is quite exhausting.
Yeah, like I'm like I'm so sensitive or something, but just like literally I don't know. And I'll tell Neil like you don't like I'm feeling really gross right now because I just like I woke up in the morning, decided to read like a section of this book or whatever, and it like made me feel gross. So he just makes fun of me, and I'm like, look at this picture. It doesn't have any of the context, which does help. It makes it way creepier because the story is also freaking creepy.
Yeah.
But I'm literally just almost done with his first. I'm given to understand his first serialized collection, and I think it's like Tomy, but it's about this woman who is psychotic and like keeps showing up and getting murdered and showing up again, and it's horrifying.
Yeah,
it's horrifying.
I think that sets the tone for today's episode because Akira's got some horror.
Yeah.
It's also got a bunch of asshole teenagers.
That's horrifying. That's horror.
Now for me, comics, I love comics. I've read some comics. I draw and think about comics every day. Akira is not necessarily like part of my childhood in book form, but it was always there. So we're 10 years apart. If you haven't heard, I've mentioned it on every friggin' episode of this show.
People need to know.
But again, it's important because in the late 90s, this type of thing was like still a massive deal. There wasn't enough anime where, we had Pokemon and we had Sailor Moon and we had some breakdowns, but it's not what it is today where there is an anime like for everybody in every possible interest. Like I remember Akira was like the masterpiece of the time. If you knew Akira and you got it, you were like a kind of highbrow comic reader. I was too stupid.
Cannot believe you didn't have a natural taste for manga.
Well, I liked it. I guess I didn't have a lot of access to it. My comic shop near where I live didn't have a wide variety. It was mostly like Marvel. So my main relationship with Akira was just the aesthetic. Like there's that great, I remember when I went to college, a friend that I made very quickly had the iconic Akira t-shirt, which has Canada's bike. It's like he's walking, it's kind of an overhead shot. He's like walking straight up towards his bike just on a white background, and then Akira in like giant sans serif. It's like the best shirt.
Iconic.
Yeah. But when you watch the movie, that energy isn't quite there. Like he's kind of a buffoon half the time, and he's shitty to his kind of girlfriend. So you're like, this shirt makes you look way cooler than you actually are.
To be honest, I was thinking about that the other day because when I was watching this, and I've seen it before, but I was watching it at home, and we had just gotten this portable projector, and I had Neil set it up for me in the bedroom, just like up against the wall, and I just absorbed this movie, playing it super loud. Neil's never seen it, and the whole time I'm like, what on earth does he think is going on in here? Because obviously if you've seen Akira, like it gets pretty wild, and it gets really loud, and a lot of screaming and yelling and explosions are happening.
Yeah.
And it made me start thinking, like, what do people who haven't actually seen Akira think about it? And it can't possibly be anything like what it actually is. You would have to think, like, baseline, this is about cool motorcycle teens who are like badass. Like this is not a good comparison because I enjoy this movie, but it's not on par. But like Drive with
oh yeah, totally.
Ryan Gosling. Like
yeah,
I imagine people think it has that energy, and it absolutely doesn't at all.
Other than it's cool because it has motorcycle or like a cool vehicle and like a guy with a great coat.
And it's still only kind of incidentally cool. It's not cool like, oh, this guy has it handled and he's like so badass and he's flexing and whatever. It's like he's cool, but in a more realistic, like he's probably going to break his leg, like when he runs into something with a motorcycle thing, which doesn't typically happen in badass movies.
But that is kind of that era of anime. It's like it's not marketed quite right in the way stuff from the West would be to a Westerner. It's like there's something lost in translation of the promise of what you think you're going to get when you read or watch some of that stuff. Now everybody knows what they're getting into, but at that time it just didn't really match up because Akira, it's like a weird mix. It's a cartoon, but it's definitely like influenced by film. So I was just kind of digging into, what's the stuff that influenced this movie in this book series? And also like culturally, what point of time is this all like coming together? So this movie comes out 1988. You're not around.
Unbirthed at this time.
So I'm too young to really be watching this stuff. But of course, like, you or most people roughly our age, like the 80s, like we kind of get the 80s in a lot of ways. So the era of this book is kind of like this golden era of manga and anime where Japan has like this massive economic presence. So like take a movie like Die Hard, where you have like the Tower of Die Hard is like a Japanese company, or Blade Runner is a movie that feels like it's very like Tokyo inspired. It's kind of this idea where like the Eastern influence has kind of overshadowed what the West once was, right? What are some other things? So you've got William Gibson's Neuromancer, which we kind of like got into him a little bit last week because we were talking about steampunky cyberpunk, right? And we've got what's left of a generation that grew up on, maybe we're digging into something maybe we haven't really talked about, like 70s cinema in America, like new Hollywood stuff, like Taxi Driver, like dark stories about weird characters. So far, I feel like we keep hitting the wall of like, oh, we're in kind of the hero's journey again. But like, this is not that.
Not today.
So much of the influence of Otomo is not hero's journey stuff, which is kind of a nice change. It's like weird vibe, gritty city, a lot of kind of film noir feelings, and just people that can't be restrained by like the world that they're in.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a reductionist because I feel like this is the most obvious thing you could say about this movie. And it's also just like an inherently kind of a story that does not lend itself to any kind of hero's journey thing. Mm-hmm. But for a Japanese movie or story, because all of Akira, to have all of this kind of worldwide destruction. I mean, at the beginning of the movie, and I presume the graphic novels, which I guess contextually you can probably tell, I have not read.
I can hold them up, which is kind of a benefit of the
I've absorbed the whole story. Yeah. And also all of the drawing ability, which is pretty cool.
It's quite good.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about this. So I will, I know the general through line of stuff that didn't make it into the film, but I have not actually read them. But the movie opens with like normal 1988 Tokyo getting just evaporated off the map by some kind of event. And then apparently you find out, in the time skip immediately afterwards that this triggered World War III, just like nuclear exchange, which it's sort of like mentioned offhand because it's not like we spend any time in the movie in these other countries or anything. We don't see like what other countries are doing, but it's just like, it's kind of like Godzilla was directly about, responding to the horror of the nuclear bomb and just kind of reckoning with that. And I feel like that's what movies like this are. In a very literal sense, and also, when you have like people dealing with these cosmic forces that are much, much bigger than they are, and just the amount of like destructive power you see in this movie, it's about that. It's not about anybody.
It's obsessive about it.
Yeah,
the idea of it.
And it's not even not about characters because there are really interesting and like fleshed out characters in this story, but it's just not about their like personal growth necessarily, not in the way that you might traditionally interpret that. It's not a Frodo thing. Like
no.
To contrast those two characters, like they do not have a lot in common.
Right. So Otomo, the director, also the creator of the manga. I'm going to say manga. I feel like that's not how people say it.
It's not, but you're allowed to do it. Nobody sent him a message, you guys.
I still like it. Okay, manga. I can do it. My brain just can't keep up with my mouth. So he's kind of punky. Like there's a heavy punk energy of this. We just watched a trailer for something that is called An Influence to Akira, which is a 1970s film from Japan called Crazy Thunder Road, which basically looked like kind of Mad Max meets The Outsiders meets, what would you say? Oh, like The Warriors.
No, The Warriors, yeah.
It's just all that shit. It's leather jackets. It's bats with spikes on it. It's motorcycles. It's, lens flare lighting and like gritty, grimy, shitty looking streets and like maybe a bazooka.
Yeah, like people riding around on the back of a little ATV with like a machine gun on it and like bandoliers of bullets. Like it's just it goes to a lot of places apparently.
Yeah, it's like punk. It's a little bit glamorized, but it's still like street level. Like it's not kind of David Bowie-ified punk. And like kind of sci-fi speculative. It's just like street level, shitty kids with no money just try to make do or dirty, just pass the time.
Like dirty, gravelly.
Yeah.
Tetanus punk.
So you got that energy, which I feel like is very unique to comics. This is something that when I was a teen and just looking to weird underground art, comics was a really magical place because unlike movies and cartoons especially, you didn't really need any money to make them and tell your story. So you can just kind of start from nothing and you can build a following and an audience, of course, over time and things get popular. But from the beginning, all you need is like your dumb idea and some paper and pencil and you can start telling your weird story. And there's something about Akira that if you sat with the books, if you sit with like the 6 giant graphic novels that make up like the 2,000 pages of the book, you can feel it growing. You can feel like the city expanding over time. Sure, like a giant veiny baby, you can feel it growing. No, in like a more of a geographical way. You can feel the city expanding and you can feel like the artist just really exploring this idea, iterating on it, and then kind of building a story. And then the film kind of condenses all that and we can kind of get into how the plot plays out a bit more. But I also wanted to talk about the funding for this because like, admittedly, Akira just like looks great, right? It's kind of a perfectly beautiful.
I mean, it's unreal how good it is watching it at the time that it was like, watching it now, knowing the time that it was made. Some of it is just insane. And even like I've mentioned this in other movies, but there are shots in this movie where there's like a clear use of blurring and like depth of field and stuff that you just didn't really see a lot in animated movies. And maybe that was like very common or something in anime at the time, but it doesn't feel, it just feels very special. They were just doing some really crazy stuff.
So I got some numbers on here. how all that came together. Because I remember even, I guess the nice thing about this show is it gives me a reason to look up that stuff. And it was happening as far back as when we were doing Pixar. We're like, why? Oh, yeah, Steve Jobs. Or like, you find out where the money comes from, right? So booming Japanese economy in the 80s. Westerners love Japan. So that's like fueling a big part of it. And 8 different production companies came together to produce the film. So something like you could compare like Nausicaa, which came out around a similar time. The budget for the Akira film is 10 times more than Nausicaa, which is crazy. And you're like, that can't be true. But then if you really look at Akira, if you like freeze certain moments, you're like, oh my God, there's 8 layers of city matte paintings like behind. Sometimes there would be up to 9 cells stacked on top of each other to like capture just a scene of 2 characters walking down a bridge saying like, fuck you, stop talking to me. Why are you always like this? Like something totally not important, but it's like a beautiful composition.
Yeah.
That's the weird magic of this movie is literally it doesn't have a lot to say like when the characters speak, but visually there's many levels to it.
Yeah, no follow up.
All right, more numbers just to throw at you and you can just react in silent
I'd love
awe.
to. Yeah. I will not be speaking.
The movie cost almost 11 billion yen, so like $10 million.
Honestly, I'm just going to stop you there to say that sounds like nothing,
right.
Which I find very stressful. Though. Yeah, it's just very. Here we are.
Oh, okay. Maybe like I think there was. I mean, okay, that's the thing with like budget stuff. It's like, yeah, these things get a lot of money, but animation is still, no matter how much money it costs, it's still really hard. I was watching some videos of somebody painstakingly paint windows. They would measure windows. There would be like the layer in a skyscraper with 1 millimeter windows and then a layer with like 3.5 millimeter windows. And somebody's job was that. It doesn't matter how much you're getting paid. Like that is taxing.
Yeah. And
on the soul.
When I was, hopefully I can keep this thought streamlined so it doesn't just get totally out of hand. Watching this movie, if you just told me that 1 to several people had died while making it, I would believe you.
Oh, yeah.
Without a question. And obviously, like, that has happened with anime and manga creators. And it's not limited to them. Like, a lot of creatives, a lot of animation has had to deal with that. Mm-hmm. You know, the crunch so hard that they literally die. But I was reading about the creation process of the graphic novels. And I get Otomo had like been working on both of them simultaneously, at least during some point. I don't quite recall how much there was an overlap there, but he would talk like there was a point where he was talking about like, yeah, I'd pull like several all-nighters trying to get these pages out because my deadlines were so brutal. And then I had to just go to work to do the movie stuff. And I'm just like, God, I mean, how is your body still functioning? And in fact, I'm a little bit jealous, frankly, because I just don't think I could pull that off, even though I don't think it's healthy to do so. And it's probably not desirable in any way. But just like, that's what it takes to make stuff like that. And but it's very easy to watch Akira and be like, whoa, I'm so inspired. But it's like, at what cost?
Right. Right. It almost seems like a religion. It's so built into his mind or like the mind of these like manga and anime artists to pursue something like almost every waking moment. There's a great graphic novel. I had to look it up for a minute, by Yoshiro Tatsumi called A Drifting Life, which he's kind of an iconic manga artist, from like the mid 40s to the 90s. And he made a book about getting his first job and building his career. And it's basically just about a guy sitting at a low table and just drawing all the time. And that's all the book's about. And it's just crazy because I feel like, we like get along because we're not workaholics exactly. Like we're managing our lives, but we like to be working. Yeah. And we like to spend a good amount of time working. But guys like this is like a whole nother category of pursuit.
Yeah. I'd like to understand more of it. Honestly, because I just don't, it's so alien to anything I've experienced or wanted to do or physically capable of doing.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do it. And so I'd love to know, like, what is the motivation? What else is going on culturally or if it's individually, I don't know, that inspires somebody to have that physical drive. I think we talk about it a decent amount, but I think a lot of people don't realize how physically taxing it actually is to do that. You know, it's easy. Like animation or drawing or whatever, creative jobs, it's really easy to be like, oh, like you draw all day. Like, it's not even hard. It's like any physical thing actually is pretty bad for you if you're just doing it over and over again.
Well, consider this, listener. Okay, sure, it's taxing to like move your body, physical labor, but if your job is specifically to funnel every idea and piece of information you have through your wrist and basically through out like a couple digits of fingers, that's like a very narrow funnel that's like it's like I don't know, it's like getting out of New York City going through
a carpal funnel, I would say.
Yeah, it's a very specific type of strain that is pretty unique to like the visual art.
And it sucks industry. So bad, listener.
Yeah, I'd rather be washing dishes. And I do like washing dishes, and I have done that job. And there's nothing wrong with that job.
Do you want to come over and handle some dishes for me?
No, I'm sure we have some dishwashers in the audience. I hope we do. I hope we're that popular.
Oh, yeah. Listen, let us like cry and complain about animating while you wash your dishes at work.
Let's complain about having the job secure enough where we can like talk about a cartoon for a couple hours on a Tuesday.
We love it. This is our lives.
Okay, but these animators, we've got 160,000 frames of animation. We have 2,182 shots, 783 scenes. Otomo personally storyboarding, like Miyazaki, the whole fucking thing from beginning to end. Insane. Also, to the movie's detriment a bit, I think, like when we get into plot, it's a rocky ride, story-wise, for a lot of this, I feel. So maybe just one hand on the wheel of the movie and one hand on the wheel of the book maybe was not like the most ideal.
I don't know. I'm curious.
I don't know.
Obviously, we're going to talk about this because that's the whole deal. But I'm curious where we will land because I have no idea. Because I just when I watch this movie, my brain goes offline. I think I forget this movie every time I see it. And then I watch it again and I'm like just absolutely shocked. And, it is a complete mystery in a lot of ways. Like, what's going on? It can be a little hard to follow and stuff. But it's just like, this is going to sound so dumb. But it just is what it is. And it couldn't be that I don't know. But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Let's try to dig into that a little bit because I think I totally understand what you're saying. And I think it's, every storytelling medium has kind of its language of its genre or its form. And anime is not built into me. I have to work a little harder to get it. So okay, let's go through a couple other things. Cowboy Bebop, ever watched it?
Not really.
Okay, me neither really. Ghost in the Shell?
Yes.
What's some other ones from this era? Appleseed, do you remember that? Have you ever seen that? Full Metal Alchemist, I guess that's a little later.
No, I never did.
Okay, so we're I feel like we're on Pokemon.
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so there we are. Okay, we can agree on Pokemon. We're back
in business.
But when we get into the kind of harder anime, the more like YA, I guess we could call it, we have some just empty spots, blind spots.
Yeah.
And I think that's why maybe this movie kind of feels isolated in a way because we aren't connecting it to peers.
To set the scene a little bit for me, because you've talked a little bit about it, but I was definitely of the era, in the 90s. So when I was a kid, and then maybe the early 2000s, there was Toonami was a big thing.
Yeah. And
they had these certain shows. It was like Inuyasha, Dragon Ball Z, and then stuff like Tenchi Muyo, all of that. My sister and I watched a lot of that, and a lot of kids our age grew up watching stuff like that. And then at some point, I had my adolescent things that I like are not cool phase, and all my really bad manga drawing and stuff and all of that went away, but we still liked Miyazaki, and we found Miyazaki just by my sister and I being in Blockbuster and picking stuff that looked cool. So no one told us about it, and we literally saw Princess Mononoke first, and I was in 4th grade and we just got it from Blockbuster and it was the coolest shit ever. Because this is also when I saw Millennium Actress. We were talking about Satoshi Kon movies recently. And that's just how we saw it. We just found it in Blockbuster. We thought it looked neat. And We loved it. And so that was like our only experience with anime. I don't remember anyone ever talking to us about Akira, which makes sense because we were children.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember actually watching Ghost in the Shell when we were pretty young because it had that reputation. And we just didn't understand it at all, I'll be honest.
Right.
And I've never really watched it again. So, honestly, I don't know if just like we didn't get it because we weren't like 12-year-old boys, because that seems to be
the stuff
the main
is pretty
demographic I
boy-centric.
hear a lot about Ghost in the Shell from now.
Mm-hmm.
But it just went right over our heads. And I didn't see Akira until I was very adult.
Right.
Still not mature enough to handle it.
So I feel like a little of it comes down to how this stuff is made available to us. So in the 90s, Disney, I'm pretty sure, started releasing Ghibli stuff, right? Okay, so that was that. Akira,
I'm not even sure if it was in the 90s, actually, just because I think there was a Fox edit of
right.
Totoro.
Yeah,
That's what I grew up on. And
okay.
I rented it so much from Blockbuster that they lost it. I'm pretty sure they didn't actually lose it. But Spirited Away, John Lasseter, I think, was like, I'm like best bros with Miyazaki. I'm gonna like bring over their movies, whatever.
Yeah.
And then that got a US release and it won an Oscar. And
Right.
I feel like that started a big push to get that all over here. And I don't really know what the status is now because all the Ghibli movies are on HBO.
Right. Now it's kind of broken up a little bit. Okay, so that's how we got that stuff. 1990. So Akira is massive. They put all this money into it. Now to get it to the West, they started like a production company. I think it's just called Anime Studio or something. I can't remember. It's got a very generic name, but it was basically founded as a way to release Akira on VHS in the West. So that was like its own little funnel. And then marketing, I don't know. I guess you just brought into a video store and you're like, here's this giant anime. It's kind of post-apocalyptic. It's about biological and nuclear warfare kind of, but it's also like a manga you could read first and then watch the movie. There's all these like very unique to itself touchstones that it's like, how is this just, where was it in your Blockbuster in 1991? Like, is it just sitting? Because, okay, is it a cartoon? What's coming out in 1989? American Tail, Land Before Time, Little Mermaid. It's like, do you put it with those?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And also, if you're a kid and your parents are like, oh, watch this. What are you watching at home? You're watching like Hanna-Barbera cartoons, right? It's like this thing just doesn't fit in anything at that time.
No.
We take this stuff for granted now, but I feel like, Manga Entertainment was the company. Just like the most generic company.
That's it. That's all there is to it.
Right. And then that leads to Ghost in the Shell. And like, I think even Digimon eventually comes out of this company. I think it's all Manga Entertainment. If you saw the title card, you'd be like, oh, I've seen that thing. You'd recognize
Love Digimon.
I bet you did. Okay. All right. Some more production stuff. It's just, just to kind of compare and contrast this visually with something. I was just thinking of like craft, like, all right, masterpieces. Sometimes, not that we throw this word around, but sometimes we're like, that movie is just like on another level unto itself. Sleeping Beauty is one for me that's like a graphical, visual, like masterpiece. It's kind of in its own visual category. And Akira is such a totally different cartoon in the way it does character design. It just had me thinking a lot about like the naturalistic way characters' hair moves and all that stuff. And just that pursuit and how it's so different than Disney. Just thinking about that. That's all. I don't know.
Having a feeling.
Yeah.
We're allowed. It's our podcast.
So, have you ever seen Astro Boy?
No. I mean, I know about Astro Boy
Like you
pretty
can
well.
picture him, right?
Yeah.
He's like a Disney-inspired era of like anime.
Big Mickey Mouse.
Right.
Sort of similar design sensibilities.
Right. It's just interesting the way you have that kind of stuff. And then you have, I'm just trying to imagine, like, at its time, was Akira something totally unique in Japan? I feel like it probably kind of was. Nothing had this budget it was its Titanic.
I wish,
maybe. I don't know.
If there was somebody, we've talked before about having, guests on the episode, and God, I wish we could get somebody who was there for the production of this or something to talk. I don't have no idea. If you know anyone, listener,
we'll redo this
please,
whole episode just to.
I just want to know, because that's a great question, and this every time I talk about what I do, it just pales in comparison. So talking about Akira, but. As I was just talking to you before we started recording, I am working on an anime-inspired project for work right now.
And you have 8 studios backing you, so it should just be, the quality level should be just as high.
$10 million budget. Mm-hmm. But I was, for a while, I was trying to, so the characters ended up being kind of animal-themed is how they've landed now, which had to do with some of the other writing stuff for this video. And it's also, kind of like Thundercats and like 80s, what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles inspired. So it felt appropriate. But I tried to do it actually and like human characters initially. And then I was just researching like anime styles I can draw. There aren't any. I can't do it. But I just never consciously thought about how vastly different there are so many different kinds of anime styles and they don't all look the same, which I feel really stupid saying that out loud because I've always known that. But there are these like really simplistic anime styles where it's basically just like little round eyes and like a little like triangle head and that's it. And like everybody looks like that. And there's some like really charming 80s anime and like manga that have that aesthetic. Mm-hmm. And then there's stuff like Akira, which is way more realistic, almost in an uncanny and kind of grotesque way sometimes, and all over the place. And like you'd never see a Ghibli movie and not know who made it because they do have their own specific look. Mm-hmm. I do want to know. I feel like it's really easy for people like such as myself who don't have a lot of exposure to this generally to just not really consider the vast amount of types of artistry and even like genres, reasons that they make their artistic decisions, because I haven't been able to sit down with all of the Blu-ray collections of all their movies and like watch the director's commentary for all of these. So I have no idea, except for the research that we've been able to do now. Like, I don't know what Otomo is thinking or where the story came from, or why are the colors the way that they are, because I really want to talk about the color in this movie.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that I have anything really smart to say about it, except for like the color choices are just so, some of them are like, sometimes the scene is just like actually rainbow, but it doesn't look wrong. For lack of a better, like there are many scenes where it's just like, here's like an ugly gray cityscape that's beautiful in its own way, but it's just more what you would expect maybe. And then they'll be like down in the guts of some industrial place and everything's like blue and yellow and green and purple, and it's just like, I don't know. You just don't see stuff like that. Like, if you haven't seen this movie, which is crazy, just Google it right now and pull up a streaming on Hulu. And like, we just don't do stuff like this.
Right.
People don't do this. I don't understand. I don't understand how it's possible. Or like, what would lead you to think like, okay, foreground shot, these teens are standing on, like a cement overhang and it's purple. And then in the background, there's like a cyan skyscraper. And then right behind that one, this one's all like neon green, but it just looks real. Like it just looks like you could just go out and see that in a city, which I haven't lately seen that. So
yeah, it's totally realized on like every kind of like atmospheric visual level, right? I was watching just an old interview with Otomo, and he was talking about the colorist, the lead colorist. There's something crazy. There's like a palette of, I think it's 3,000 distinct colors.
Good God.
Or 300. Both sound giant. Yeah. I don't remember how many zeros. Colors. Also hand painted, which I feel like that's kind of the magic about this era of, the last kind of run of cell animation before we get into computer animation, because the tools you have are the tools of the time. Like you're painting with brushes you bought at the store, and you bought paints by people that were making paints that time. So that's what was captured on film. Whereas now it's like, well, if it's computerized, there's a little more abstract. It doesn't like lock itself up in the same way as
you don't go to the store and pick out the fresh hex code that you're going to use.
I guess there's trends and there's like ways to, it's not that you can't obviously artistically apply it, but in a way they're kind of more limited because like the paints of that time, it's like, well, what what were the anime resources? It's like, well, we bought these paints. This is what we use in these studios. And it kind of like locks in an era, right? So maybe that's part of like the visual magic of it, just feeling so distinct. I also heard him say something kind of interesting, whereas a lot of light shadow, I guess, is done with like a blue or a purple. In this movie, it's lots of green, I guess, and red. I'm like, this, I mean, you kind of like hinted it earlier. There's something like very gross about this movie that sounds like kind of an insult, but it's like actually just, it's like being so effective is what we're saying. But I feel like the greenness, I'm like, green, I don't lean into green when it comes to shadow. I would never think that. It's like, oh yeah, I guess it gives it kind of a oily, kind of just something a little more, I don't know, Neo-Tokyo cyberpunky.
Well, it's sickly. There are scenes in this movie where there's like wading around in sewage water, and they're clearly... Everybody's
ill in this movie. There's bacteria everywhere.
You get small glimpses into these like really fashionable or cool looking places. There's a restaurant at the beginning that looks kind of normal and fancy, but really they're living on the barely buried bones of our time, essentially, in the 80s. After nuclear devastation has wreaked havoc across the earth, like nobody's living the same lifestyle that they would be in 2022. Troy, New York right now. Like it's not the same situation.
No, it's what's that? The cyberpunk idea of like high tech, low culture or something, or like low life, high tech is like kind of the vibe of it, right?
Yeah.
Which I feel like this book series and this movie, I was kind of getting at this. This is a great follow up to Arcane because there was something not hollow about that story, but I'm like, post-apocalyptic stories, they kind of come from a time and place. And I think of this being like the iconic post-apocalyptic story because the way in which the city is devastated and its historical context for Japan and some of the iconography in it that we'll talk about when we get into the story more, it just resonates in a whole different way than when a French studio in 2020 does an apocalyptic story in a city about like social breakdown and like angry teen characters and stuff. Like there's something on just a really emotional level that this movie is being produced at. Like the story is just coming through this place that makes it upsetting because like that's what it feels like to maybe be telling the story and know people that were around. Like Otomo was born, I guess he would be born in like the mid 50s. So it's like you have immediate parents that were there for World War II, which like the energy of that is very like prominent in this. Which kind of makes you just take it kind of seriously, even if you don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
There's something about it that does feel, I don't want to skip ahead to the end, but even at the beginning, when almost the first thing you see is what looks like a nuclear explosion, like evaporating the city. And it's like gut wrenching to me. I mean, I don't know that I even have anything to say about it except for that it makes me feel a feeling that I don't really feel in other things. Mm-hmm. Well, this is funny. We were just talking again before recording about Titanic because I recently watched Titanic with some friends the other day for the first time since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, this is really sad because disaster is happening and people are dying and there's like heart-wrenching scenes of like kids crying, whatever. And I'm like, I am just such a baby now. Like, I don't like to watch
it. You can't do it.
I really liked it, honestly, but it's like, oh, I'm upset in a way that when I was a kid watching it, I wasn't really.
Right.
And it's just absolutely nothing in comparison to this. Obviously, the Titanic is horrible, and that is a completely different... I mean, the accident of the Titanic was horrible. And that movie just, is completely different tonally, but it just doesn't make me feel this, like, horrified awe that there's something about this movie that just, like, makes me want to throw up when I'm watching it. And none of these... It's not a criticism. Like, you're right. It's not... This movie being disgustingly gross is... honestly, like, extensive praise. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so good. And honestly, I'd like to hear if other people feel that way because it really genuinely makes me feel nauseated, especially at the end. It just exudes that, like, growing up in the aftermath type of thing. And like, I think that makes perfect sense. I didn't really think about, like, when he was born and when he grew up. But you're literally growing up right in the aftermath of some horrible disaster. Like, didn't experience it. You weren't there for the thing, but this is just your whole entire life is steeped in that. I do remember reading that he had said at some point that a lot of like Tetsuo and Kaneda, they're just like relationship and the kind of like personalities and stuff that they did were based pretty much on his childhood and like growing up too.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of detail there, but I think like the biker gang thing, which was this whole subculture in Japan for a while, and just kind of having this rebellious sort of like restless, like we're going out in the streets. We don't really have anything to do.
Right.
So we're just kind of filling our time and things are just kind of getting crazy because we're doing that. So a lot of it felt like he's just writing about it because it was what he knew. So that also sort of paints those characters in a different light for me, where it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel very hero's journey at all, but it also doesn't feel like, oh, this scene is telling you about his whatever, like his personality. That's going to be important later. Like he's just a person that's doing stuff.
Right. Right. It's like a chain reaction of events that sort of, well, I think we should just get into it. Should we just get into the movie?
I think we should.
That you're,
yeah.
now that you're completely nauseated and like fumigated and
let's do it.
Okay. Here we go. Get on your bikes and ride. It's a Queen song.
Bicycle.
Oh, it's another Queen song.
Yeah. I love that they were so into bicycles. Yeah, fat bottom girls.
They did love bikes.
They love bikes. Queen was bikes, guys. I don't know. I love that for them. Akira, 1988. We open on Tokyo. Pretty normal, right? Wrong. Well, it is, and then it explodes in an expanding hemisphere of light.
That beautiful orb.
A beautiful orb, terrifying. What is it? A nuclear bomb? Who can say? Perhaps Akira. This naturally triggers mutually assured destruction, of which no details really are provided. But Tokyo is destroyed, and in the ensuing decades, it's rebuilt on some artificial islands in Tokyo Bay. It is pretty significantly built up, pretty technologically advanced, riddled with corruption, wayward youths roaming the streets in their vicious motorcycle gangs. I saw the "eat my dust wuss" line. That was
I love this.
Funny.
This motorcycle scene is pretty great because are these guys friends? That's the thing with this movie. It's like, do any of you like each other? Because I don't like any of you.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I actually didn't understand any of the story of this at all until I watched it this time for some reason. Not the first time I've watched it. I don't know how many times I've actually seen this movie. But there's a lot of this movie that many times I was like, what? Probably my own fault. I don't know. But some of this might have been filled in too because I did my research to find out what the graphic novel story was and what was missing. But they pretty much were best friends. And I think what is...
Right. Yeah, Tetsuo and Kaneda.
Yeah.
Those two, specifically.
They met. We'll never mention their names again. It won't come up. They met when they were little boys, both of them in an orphanage. We don't really know why. We get a little bit of a hint. I think Tetsuo is abandoned or handed off by a parent, but it's really not delved into super deeply. And Kaneda has just sort of always taken on this protector role because ever since they were kids at this orphanage, he would kind of keep the bully kids off of Tetsuo, and they sort of had this bond over that.
Yeah.
And I think something that I was going to say, I don't want to say that it's missing, but that we might be looking for and is not in this movie is scenes of them having a best friendship.
Yeah, there's no sentimentality associated with any of the relationships with these characters in the way I feel like we think of cartoon relationships having.
And to me, the only thing that really makes that apparent is it's really Kaneda's whole motive of constantly chasing after Tetsuo. So when Tetsuo gets his psychic powers, which is something else I want to talk about too, because I don't really understand where they come from, or if they even come from anywhere, if it's just a coincidence. But he gets these psychic powers at the beginning of the movie, and he just completely loses his mind, which is also something I didn't understand. I'm like, why is he just being such a jerk? And I think it's like he's actually going insane. I don't even think you could say that he's really the same person anymore. Mm-hmm. And Kaneda is like, I need to do something about this because of our relationship and because I actually care about you and we have this this relationship that goes back for so many years. But none of that is really stated in so many words. It's hinted at here or there, and they sort of talk around it. But Tetsuo's just super mean to him all the time. And he's being mean to everybody. And being mean is a stupid way to say, like, he's murdering a lot of people. And, being incredibly hot-headed and really nasty.
I guess it's true to teen boy. If you want to, like, make a believable story, I guess it's like, I guess teen boys, their default is just to be shitty to each other 95% of the time. So I guess it's realistic.
Yeah, I think... The way that I can think of it is like they probably did have a little bit of a contentious relationship, but I bet there was an actual bond there in the way that, like, stereotypically, I guess, boys don't talk about it. So they're never like, you mean a lot to me, bud. Like, they probably aren't saying stuff like that to each other. But Tetsuo has always had this insecurity of being, like, the little weak one that was, like, bullied and cried and, was abandoned and all of this stuff.
The only hint we really get is that they come out of the biker bar. Oh, question in the biker bar, which we come back to later. There's a jukebox, and you see the disc change. Arcane.
It has to
pulling
be.
that, right?
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Are you,
Arcane
as
reference.
listener, are you following along?
If you...
Because we just had a mutual brainwave with no words behind it, really. But yeah, if you listen to our 3-part series on Arcane, very good, I presume. I haven't listened to it yet, but I was there. We mentioned several times the jukebox machine thing that opens up every episode of Arcane. It has this kind of Art Nouveau art of the main characters of that show. And I never would have given it a second thought. And then there is a fleeting depiction of this CD jukebox.
Right at the top, yeah.
And I'm just like, that has to be where they got it from. There's no earthly way it came from anywhere else. And it's not the only thing watching this movie. I was just like, oh, yeah. And I know a lot of stuff. I challenge you to watch Akira if you've never seen it and be like, find nothing that you haven't seen referenced somewhere else. Like you're gonna see something that you recognize because that's what this movie is to a ton of people. Mm-hmm. It's really foundational. But it was kind of fun to see that and just be like, probably.
Yeah, definitely. And you can also see, I think why we're being so harsh on like, here's what we expect of stressful relationships with teen characters, because we just watched like 9 episodes of a show, which is not much different than 2 characters who were once united, just slowly, tragically veering apart in a way that they'll never be able to be back together because the world has just like ripped them to pieces.
What could have been?
It's kind of a similar thing, but you can see the harsh difference in this era of like what's valuable to the storyteller. It's like Arcane has it's hard and it's edgy, but in the characters' eyes, there is a softness behind it. These characters don't really have that. They're kind of like, they're just almost hard all the way through, other than very small moments. Like, what's the one moment we get this opening where we see how the 2 main boys are united. One of them's like, well, your bike's so cool. It does all these things. Get out of here. I'm driving it. And that's it. You're like, oh, you just think he's cool. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. They're not friendly. No one is friendly to each other.
Nope. And once the girls show up, things get a lot less friendly. But we'll get there. Okay. So visually, the bike chase, this whole opening, I was listening to them talk about the production, and I think it's a little lopsided in terms of like visual spectacle. I think they put a lot of the money into like this first act. The middle of the movie feels a little empty.
Yeah.
It's just literally empty. Like visually, there's like less backgrounds. And then at the very end, the last like 10 minutes, it really like ramps up again.
All the budget shows up again.
Yeah. But this opening shot, the bikes look great. The angles, the camera angles are great coming from like, this is that cinematic influence. Like you hadn't seen a cartoon that looked like this before. I don't imagine, like just like that shot where, Canada, like he comes over the camera. They're fighting the clown gang.
The clowns, the bad clowns.
And he like hits one of them and knocks him off, and then he skids to a stop, and the bike like goes over the camera and like just fits perfectly like in the frame, and it just looks so cool.
Never seen that referenced anywhere else.
Right, it just looks so good. And then not to mention like playing off aesthetics of like 35 millimeter or like frame rate adjustments. Like there's slow motion shots, there's lens flares, there's like the drag of the light from the bikes, like simulating all these like cinematic things that are so much a part of like 70s filmmaking. It's just such like, this movie wants to be a movie so bad.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, you will not be able to Google a review of Akira without immediately being referenced in like the subhead about the light streaks. Like that's like
that's the thing to see.
People are like, whoa. But I mean, it looks so good. And watching this projected in my room is the closest I have ever been, and possibly ever will be, to seeing this in a theater. And I just like was gobsmacked. Can I say that?
Yeah, it's a
gobsmacked.
It's a kid friendly show.
No, bleep it out. It's just that people don't know what I'm saying. It felt unreal. Even I've seen this movie before. I know what I'm getting into, and it just felt like it was so large and expansive and colorful and cool. Just actually really cool.
Right.
That's the good stuff. That's cartoon feelings. And I did want to mention, I don't think I mentioned it, when we watched was it Crazy Thunder Road?
Yeah, we watched the trailer for Crazy Thunder Road before this.
It opens with some shots like that, except for that it is like pitch black. So it's motorcycles like tearing through the town, whatever. And the light on the motorcycles glaring and flashing, but you actually can't see anything behind it. There's no detail to the scene. And I'm like watching those shots and being like, oh, but he wanted, like, I bet what he wanted was what they did in Akira. Now, later down the road, being like, okay, like this is what I wanted to make at that time. I just couldn't do it because I'm filming this, and I'm working with what I have. And it looks so good. Right.
It's like it's the curse and the privilege of animation is that you can literally control everything about the universe. So it can look as good as you have the money to make it, I guess, or the vision for it. Also just editing the way a scene breaks down. There's so many aspects you see of every shot. Like we're leaving or we're just being introduced to the city. We're seeing the neon lights above. They're flashing. We're seeing like the consumerism of the city. We're seeing televisions playing news stuff. We're seeing just like bar lights or street signs that are kind of flickering out. Like every type of lighting that exists in a city, you're seeing it, and you're seeing reflections in water. You're seeing car lights. It's just so, and then once we bring in the military, then we start seeing spotlights on everything. It's also light driven.
Also arcane. Like, I don't want to say that Arcane invented it, but there's a lot of the military imagery that I'm like, huh, okay. Also kind of Arcane, maybe they watched Akira a lot.
Oh yeah, totally. The role of the military presence and what it evokes in the story is pretty much the same. And also the way, there's something that brings a charm to this, which is a pretty dark story overall. But whenever there's a heavy action scene, the body language of the characters is quite comical. Like they'll usually be like a long shot and you see them kind of bumbling in a way, or like very like frantic in that classic anime that's like played up so much in like Dragon Ball or whatever. But this is grounded, except in the moments where it's extremely cartoony, and it's such a thing unto itself.
I guess something about it that's nice is that you don't like every time I watch Titanic, which is just only once recently, you're very struck though by the fact that they probably would have died pretty early just from hypothermia or whatever. Like there's so many, the human spirit can only propel you through so much peril before you die. Mm-hmm. But in this movie, I'm just not ever really thinking about that, even if it's true. I'm just like, oh my God, it feels real. Like I felt very concerned a lot of the time watching it.
Right. Okay. So we appreciated the majesty of this. So like, I'm trying to think of a younger viewer. Like I wonder what the legacy of this movie will be long term, because you watch this opening scene, it looks great. You're like, wow, this is amazing. I should watch more. Now, these characters end up at a police station. One of the main jokes in the police station is about a terrorist bombing where someone like pulls the pin on a grenade, but it doesn't go up. Hilarious. A joke, not a great joke. Also, like, probably not funny if you've never seen a thing like that in a cartoon. So it's like there's a lot of these little things like that in this movie that I wonder if they're holding this thing back from.
Did you find that to be funny, though, intentionally, though? Because I didn't.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. Is that a joke?
I mean,
it's kind of like, here's what the world is like. People are just doing this. It's very dark, but it's played in a cartoonish way.
I think it just reminds me of the feeling that, like, oh, you're in New York City and you see somebody just lose it in public.
Right.
Kind of. It's that sort of discomfort where you don't really know what to do, especially if you are very close. And I think that's maybe what it's evoking. Okay. But the fact that the cops just beat the shit out of this guy right away and they drag him away and his blood like trails from his face on the ground on the floor, I was like, I don't think any of that was intended to be funny in the cartoonish way. Yeah. I think it is just sort of like funny in that way that it's something kind of tragic and confusing is happening, and sometimes you don't really have any other option but to be like, and if you're like an obnoxious teen who happens to be there, you probably would be like, oh my god, like that, these people are crazy, whatever, because you're not reckoning with the fact that that person, like, you know, has probably been through a lot or has a significant mental illness or all of these things.
Yeah. So you think that that's there in the storytelling? I
think so. Okay. Because I think some of it is expositional, I guess, too.
Well, yeah.
But I think it's a good point to show them. They need to find little ways to introduce to you that they have this resistance group, this underground group.
Right.
Which is a little more established as well in the graphic novel, I think, but is a pretty, you know, plays a big role in this movie. And just kind of show you, like, what is going on with people.
Right.
We have this really advanced police presence. This guy is on the edge enough that he feels like this is the right thing to do to try to blow himself up. Mm-hmm. And then the cops are like, oh, that's pathetic. We're just going to beat the shit out of this guy. And one of them says something like, we're going to really have fun with this guy later, sort of implying that they're just going to keep beating the shit out of him until he dies, I guess.
Yeah, violence is just like a way of life. It's just part of the day.
There's no recourse for this person, or if he has any family or what.
We also get the sense that everybody is pretty young. Like, the story focuses on a teen gang. Any character that really comes in is either also a teen or not too much older than a teen. And even there's like this one spot where the cop, Canada, insults one of the guards. What does he say? He says something about your wife. He's like, hey, I'm only 25. I'm not even married. It's like, everybody's really young here. It's like the cops and the teen.
But that guy looks like he's like 40 something.
Yeah, he's got a massive like,
get
jaw.
It.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, 25.
And now we also meet in this prison scene. Kay.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Who's our like rebel girl. This kind of brings up an aesthetic thing that I think I appreciated about that. While in the next scene, the boys are not nice to the girls. It's like pretty crude. But the way they Otomo draws women is interesting because they're not like hyper. I would say even Arcane has a bit of like the women are kind of like fetishized a little bit. Everybody's very skinny. Like clothes are like really kind of flattering the body. And this. There's kind of just like this androgynous feel to everybody. Nobody's like really sexualized. The teen girls, all just really normal. None of them are trying to show off in any way, which is kind of interesting and neat because other anime at this time, I don't think anything else was really doing that. I think some of the response to this was, hey, why aren't the girls hot? Because that's what you would expect out of like pulpy anime in the way out of a Conan the Barbarian story. You're like, why isn't the guy not wearing a shirt? You know, it's like there's these tropes of types of stories
I
that
would be so confused and upset if I knew somebody who was in any way aroused while watching Akira, though. Like, for God's sake, even
but
if the
I think
character
that's
is
the
hot,
nature of like manga and anime for
no, 100%,
right?
You're dead on. Well, and like, I love that you brought up Arcane for this because I think they do it. They are very tasteful in how they treat characters, but like most of the characters are really hot.
Yeah.
Then they just are, and like even a lot of the guy characters are, and
Yeah.
it's like that's Riot's thing too,
Yeah.
which I've talked about before. The game, like, so it's a vibe you expect, and so I don't, it is what it is in that case. And in this one, I think it's so funny. There's a common criticism in like female character design where they're like, it's like the Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man thing. Where Pac-Man's just the yellow ball. Like
Okay,
Miss Pac-Man has lipstick and a bow. So she's a girl. But it's funny because in this, I really think in a lot of cases, you would not know that Kay is supposed to be a woman, except that she has the pronounced eyelashes. And in some close-up shots, very few, but some close-up shots, she has visible eyeshadow. And that's it.
Right.
And I love that. You're totally right that she just has the physique of a male action hero because she's wearing practical clothing a lot of the time. And nobody makes a big deal out of it. And we love it. Thanks for being progressive, Otomo.
And this whole girl group, so the teen boys, after they've been beat up by their gym coach, I guess, like they're slapped around.
Yeah.
They come back to school. The school sucks. It's a mess. There's a brazier on the founder of the school sculpture out front. Oh,
you didn't have that at yours?
I didn't go to Animal House school, I guess.
Catholic school, that we do that on every single.
So the education system's a mess, right? These teens, they get shouted at by the principal, classic like authority figure. They're like, yeah, no, we're fine. We're doing that. And they all go outside. And then the girls are waiting. And I kind of love this scene because they're all brought together. Each girl kind of pairs up with a boy. And we get a shot of them all walking. And they're kind of just talking about like, oh, what happened to, because we haven't mentioned, there's been like the inciting incident of this whole thing is like Tetsuo got in an accident with a little glowing old man child.
Yeah.
Which I think is how he absorbs the power, we'll have to assume.
So that's
right?
why, I flagged this earlier in discussion to talk about it because I was like, I don't know. And it's never explained or even really talked about.
I don't know.
And I even sort of tried to Google around for it just to get some kind of grasp on it. And no one really addressed it that I could find. It was just like the powers manifest. And frankly, the way it's written in most synopses that I found just still make it sound like it's not even related to hitting the kid. So I'm like, what? So did he just have it?
Well, I think it might be dormant, actually. I'm trying to think of the book. I haven't made it through all the books again yet, but I think it might have been a dormant thing because in the book, they talk about assigning him a number, all the little like glowy small children people. So he might have just always had it.
I assume. I think the movie does a pretty good job of giving you enough information to put the pieces together. And at the end, we sort of have this backstory sequence a little bit with these old children who happen to be psychics. And they all, had some sort of government involvement in their lives pretty invasively, I would say. So it doesn't really outright state, like, was this like a, power that was like forced on them by some government stuff? But like, there's this doctor character that shows up throughout as well. He kind of gives some backstory to it. And it just sort of overall seems more likely that it's like, there are just psychic people who are out there and they have like varying degrees of power and abilities and what they can do. And it's really bad and scary if it gets out of control, which is why they have these kids.
It's like a truth of the new world that the world as it is hasn't come to terms yet, which is why it probably blows up again.
Yeah. Spoiler.
Oh, sorry.
Nobody saw that coming.
All right. Back at the school, the kids are walking. Don't remember what they're talking about. But if you're watching them, what's going on? Okay. Two of them start making out. And then the girl's like, oh, what? And she reaches in her mouth and pulls out a tooth. And the other kid has like lost his tooth in her mouth. And then she like takes it and throws it. And then another guy vomits blood after he gets slapped on the back by somebody. I broke down the scene.
I am really glad you pointed that out.
Do you remember that scene?
I also am very confused about the kid just vomiting blood.
Right. Like, why is he vomiting blood?
I have absolutely no idea.
Are these kids just sick? Have they all been exposed to like something radioactive? Like, is this just fallout? Is that what it is? It's just sort of this unspoken thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Nobody has like tumors or anything weird like that. It's just, but there is blood sometimes.
I guess. Yeah.
Is it a joke?
I don't know if it's supposed to be. This is funny because I don't know the right answer. And I feel like what I'm about to say might be obvious and I'd never thought about it until now. But is it just because, like, did they get in a fight with the clown guys?
Yeah, I guess
and they got super beat up? Because, like, they had, like, one of them's just got a big old bruise on his face or something like that. But it was just distracting to me because I don't know. I guess I just wasn't thinking about, I thought we'd moved on.
I thought it was like a day later
and
or something.
And just to see a kid literally just gushing blood out of his mouth on cue was very distracting. And it reminds me of in Lord of the Rings, you pointed out that shot where Aragorn trips and he just doesn't land. Like, it feels like that. I
forgot about that.
One of my favorite things ever to have learned on this podcast. It's so bad. But yeah, it's just quite shocking and it feels like, but I do think at least this story seems to want you to know that things are real bad and painful all the time.
Yes.
Even without necessarily being like, and everybody has cancer from like nuclear stuff or whatever. It's just like, nobody's good. Nobody is okay.
Yeah. I think it's something that's you have this director, storyboarder, person who's like completely in charge of the whole creative direction, who's also drawn a couple hundred, at least, probably even 1,000. I'm sure he's done at least half the book when this movie goes into full production. Because I think by the time it comes out, the only thing that hasn't been released is the very last volume of the book. So I think the movie is like the first half of the first book and then the last scene from the last book. So he knows the story in and out. And I think we lose a bit because he knows the story so well. We're not getting almost everything we need. We have to kind of like keep up.
Yeah.
There's like a shorthand almost to his storytelling, maybe.
In a way, I do think I think this is what we were getting at earlier when I was saying, like, I just don't know if I would have it any other way. But I think it's stuff like that sometimes that makes things feel way more rich in the long run when things that happen and you don't know why. Because it is like, I was sitting here being like, that's weird that he's got blood out of his mouth. But it just makes everything feel like it's really happening because life is that way. I mean, very few times have I just seen somebody be like, blood out of their mouth with no warning. But that's like a lived in world. Like, I don't need to know what's going on. Sure. I see a lot of stuff every day where I'm like, huh? And that's fine. And I grow as a person, I guess, I hope. But there's just so much going on, detail and texture in this, that it makes it feel really too real, almost.
Another thing that's really too real. So, okay, we get Kia. Sorry, K? Not Kia. That's a car.
But it could be. There's no Kias in this. It's mostly, I don't know motorcycle brands, so never mind.
Okay, so
not a good bit.
Canada's trying to, I wonder if they'll do a redub that's just a little softer, like tonally here. Canada's trying to like win her over and she's being very polite about a classic like boy girl moment here. You know what the scene I'm talking about? When they part ways after the police station. It's just like, are we supposed to like this character? Cause he's like, I saved your life. She's like, great. I helped you too. Here, I guess we're all even. I'm going. I'm not, because he proposes a date and she's like, no. And he turns on a dime and he's like, at least you could tell me your name, you cold bitch. It's like, Jesus.
It's like, all right.
Let's just cut those last two words and just leave it. So maybe we can enjoy this protagonist journey as you two. Because in the book, it's actually slightly cuter. Because it's such a slower burn, and they spend a lot more time together running through tunnels. And it's a cuter, more Indiana Jones dynamic where he's like had enough of her, she's had enough of him, but you're kind of like, this is cute. 100%. But in the movie, it's a little rougher.
Yeah.
I feel like. He's just kind of generally mean to her, or like a pushy, climbing on top of her all the time.
He seems like a dick, and it is. I think that is one of the best examples of like it suffering from being a movie, because you're right. And I didn't realize, you can watch this movie and be like, yeah, okay, like he likes her, obviously, like whatever, maybe there's a thing there, but it's not really conclusive. And like by the end of the movie, it's not like we're boyfriend and girlfriend, and like
Right.
we get married or whatever. And then I was researching, and it's like, oh, in the graphic novel, like they are a thing, and they have this blossoming relationship that's part of the whole deal. And I was
Right.
like, oh, okay, that did not come through at all in the movie, and he comes across like a real jerk. And I don't know, I don't think it's bad that he left in the like you bitch thing, but I also don't mind not really liking Kaneda that much.
Yeah.
Like, and I also just sort of find it realistic that he would be kind of an asshole, so I don't really expect him to be a super chill guy.
Oh, no. I just think these are artifacts of their time is all I'm pointing out. You know, it's like they wouldn't tell the story this way.
It doesn't convey at all that there would be a romance to me.
No.
So, and like for that to be the goal of these characters, that they had this romantic relationship, like there's no perception of that for me. I'm just like, oh, he's a guy.
Yeah.
Doing his thing, not being super respectful at all, and being kind of a dickhead.
Right. All right. Let's jump to a little bit of exposition. So at about this point in the movie, we cut to the lab where we meet the colonel and we meet a scientist, Dr.
I can never remember his name.
Onishi or something, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to remember the doctor's name because frequently they refer to him as the doctor.
Yeah, I'm just going to call him Doctor and the colonel because I think in the book it's mostly that anyway. All right. He says maybe we weren't meant to meddle with that ultimate power. And then the doctor's like, you mean the power of a god? It's just like, oh, this is just sort of like work banter that they're having here.
No, this is good.
So we haven't really learned what Akira is. I do like the slow reveal of what Akira is, because it's just this powerful word that if you know this movie, you just know that title. It's just such a, what is that? I mean, I guess it's like mostly my name, so maybe that's why I'm so like fascinated with just a couple extra letters on the front of it.
I've never thought about that.
Me neither, actually, until I said it right now. But the reveal, I like the way this story plays out in that way, where the idea of Akira keeps kind of shifting and growing until you get to the end of the movie and you're kind of left to like think about what you've learned about what Akira is. So right now we're just kind of getting a hint that there's something about this city that's like not well, right? Other than just the people bleeding,
blood everywhere,
saying mean shit to each other, and
sexism, rampant sexism,
failing schools, like just a whole generation of the lost generation here. Aside from that, there's this bigger power, and it is kind of like the arcane. There's a magic to this world that we don't. It's very different, but also similar in its place in the plot. Is like, this is going to be the thing that everything's going to pivot on, is like, what do we do with this power? And it's, again, that sort of story of like, well, it's there. We simply must control it. And by control it means we like use it against our enemies or whatever, right?
Yeah,
like,
unclear. And I guess you would, maybe they've just mean like, make sure it doesn't blow up. But
right, they're just trying to keep a cap on it, basically. Yeah. Which I wonder what the whole purpose was of it to begin with, which maybe that's explored more in the book. Because it's a power that seems to have emerged out of nowhere, really. But it is like kind of God had like given this to the earth all of a sudden, and now we're sort of like stuck with it in a way.
Yeah, I don't, I'm trying to think of a parallel, and I guess it sort of reminds me of, the, like, N.K. Jemisin's Broken Earth books.
Oh,
have you read those?
No.
The first one is the 5th season, which I feel like most people would probably have come across at some point. But that's the first in a trilogy. And it's, I don't even really know how to describe it. It's kind of like a future sci-fi fantasy, post-apocalyptic whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not in any way like Akira. Like, a lot of the world building is more typical fantasy. Technology levels are really, for the most part, low, and a lot of stuff seems to be a lot more magical. But the conflict hinges around these people that have some kind of innate ability to cause earthquakes and other cataclysmic disasters, to the point that they're like persecuted essentially. A lot of people kill them right away as soon as they find out they can do that because everybody's so afraid of them.
Yeah.
And it feels like that to me. And a big plot point of those series is that there's this government equivalent institution that starts to harness those people and try to manipulate and use the power. And it's very like shadowy, whatever. And it's kind of similar to this, that the government, maybe you hear about this, there's an incident. Maybe one of these kids like hurts somebody accidentally or causes some crazy thing to happen. Then they go out and they find out about this stuff. And then there's always like the government scientists trying to figure out how to use the power for good, like trying to figure out how to keep control of it until something goes wrong. And I kind of like that you don't actually get a lot of backstory because from what I can gather from the plot, they're doing all these tests and experiments on these children with psychic abilities. And something happens to push Akira over the edge with no idea what. And he just annihilates a significant part of Tokyo.
Right.
Pretty much all of Tokyo. So I guess you can sort of see their point, but at the same way, there's too much mystery around it to know, what were people's intentions? Why did that happen in the first place? How did you guys find out about it? We don't really need to know it, but that's like I can fill in the backstory there with some other ideas.
Right. So we get the Colonel, and he kind of like puts it in place as to what kind of the creators like look at military presence and stuff. So the Colonel's basically like, if it's a risk, we need to control it, and that's my job, and therefore I will do my job because I've defined this thing as a risk because I'm a person who defines it. It's like
I am the military man.
That shitty evil circle of
Yeah.
like, I define it this way because that's what I say, and that's what that is, and now that's my job, and I control by defining the thing, I control it completely. It's just such a depressing like state of everything.
Can't argue with it.
Government wise, you kind of can't because you have no power. So that's sort of like where he's coming from at the beginning of all this. And it really is like a story about it the whole story, like the tension of it, especially once you know where it goes. It's basically like a soda that somebody's shaken up. And it's like, is someone going to open the cap? Like, when can you open it? Is it time? I really want to open it, but there's a risk. Like, this whole thing is going to blow inevitably in some way. It's just like how soon and who's going to do it. Because now we've got Tetsuo. He's in the hospital. He's this is I guess something that probably turned me off to this story when I was younger is I've never really found psychic characters that interesting because they always go through these phases. They get the powers or their powers awaken. Then they're having migraines for a long time. And it's like maybe as someone who's never really had migraines, I'm not empathizing. I'm just like, can we get on with it? Because like these scenes of being in the hospital, and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I don't feel that bad for him. I'm like, wow, that kind of sucks. I'd rather look at something else.
Next,
sorry.
skip.
But so basically this whole, we kind of enter the middle part of the movie, which is a lot of Tetsuo just struggling and kind of like building powers, right? And blowing a couple people's heads up here and there.
Yeah. Just caving in his surroundings.
We get some good gut spilling scenes. This whole bit, I'm like, oh yeah, this is basically 11 from Stranger Things. Is this on a very like simple level, like kid with a power, government that's trying to like keep a cap on it. The kid's got to get out because he doesn't want to be here. It's like that same.
Yeah, I
setup,
gotta hit
basically.
the road.
Yeah.
I gotta get out of town.
I gotta get back to my friend's bike. I love that bike so much.
I would like to talk quickly, though. I'm glad you said the gut thing because I was gonna forget about that part. We won't harp on this too much, I presume. But we had chatted, you and I, a little bit off the air about the wanton hubris of trying to make a live action version of it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which I was always like, yeah, no, that seems dumb. And then just watching it again, I'm like, you fools, you great and terrible fool. And that was the first scene rewatching it where I was like, even this, like you wouldn't, because I kind of agree with you. I don't really care as much about the like, oh, he's in the hospital and he's like, clearly something's wrong. I'm like, yeah, what? Like, what's wrong with it?
It's just like an unrelatable problem, maybe, or something. I don't know.
Oh, and I think it's like, okay, like I understand that there's a problem and now I want to know like more stuff. So seeing it repeatedly doesn't add you any new information. And you already know that some brain stuff is like wrong. So I'm just like, okay, go. But the like psychic visions that he has when he's freaking out in his episodes, I think are so interesting and really cool. And it's just like, fuck off out of here trying to make this a live action thing. And because I just don't think it would even feel the same. There's just something about the way that all of this is designed and like looks like, yes, you could easily CGI somebody to have their guts like gush out of their body onto the pavement.
Right. So to be if you don't know the scene, basically he crumples in pain and then like his stomach or chest basically opens and everything just spills out.
And it's
for
like
a moment.
For a split second and then we're moving on because it's not really happening. And he's getting all of these.
He tries to pick him up.
Yeah. That's what it, but you just can't capture that. I don't think it. And he's like collapsing to the ground and he's like holding his head and he's like screaming. And then the ground underneath him like caves in and there's all these pipes underneath. And it's just like, this isn't really happening, but it's so compelling. And like the specific visual imagery that they're choosing to show you. And then all of the guts spilling out. And then in the next shot, he's trying to pick them up and put them back in his body, but they're not there in that shot. And it's just like that, I think would have put me on my ass. Regardless of anything else that's happened in this movie so far. Right. You just don't see stuff like that in something else. This sounds dumb. I'm sure somebody's going to be like, what about like this thing, whatever. Yeah, it's just like, this is the Akira-ness of this movie that I'm talking about is that shit. And I just like, there's something way more profound about the earth falling out from underneath him that says a lot more about what's going on and like makes it seem a lot more horrible than him being like, oh, my head hurts, like I have a nosebleed or whatever. Yeah. And that also like you could do in live action, but I just don't care. Like I don't care about that. I've seen a million Marvel movies about a million skyscrapers falling apart and it does not mean the same thing to me as seeing buildings get ripped to shreds in this movie does. It's just not the same impact. So I don't know. It's a great challenge, I guess, like a great windmill to tilt at, but maybe don't.
Well, here's some of the. Let's try. I have some speculation on how this all kind of ties together. So, his guts are falling out, and there's some other visions he has with like the bear and stuff, and we'll get into that because I feel like that's kind of a slightly different angle. The guts falling out, and then him trying to collect them. It's great gore in that, like in the realm of horror movie storytelling. This is like a trope of the body decomposing, falling apart, seeing things splatter or break down. Like there's kind of a poetry to it. Like a lot of Italian filmmakers do this. So I feel it's a bit of a tribute to that. But also later in the movie, when we discover who Akira is, his body has been like disassembled and he's just existing in jars. And then if this is kind of a wartime allegory, sure, nuclear war, but biological warfare, and also countries like with dark experimentation on human subjects and like just cutting up bodies and electrical testing and like seeing how nerve systems work so you can make some fucked chemical compound to like destroy it. I feel like that is maybe in here and that's like the resonating thing that makes this all like extra weirdly meaningfully uncomfortable or something. Maybe.
Yeah, this is the...
Why not? Why wouldn't it be about that?
I mean, it's like about everything bad.
Yeah. It truly is about everything bad.
Everything bad, everything horrifying. And I don't find that I get that bothered by body horror. I'm very squeamish, but about specific things. And just like body horror conceptually doesn't freak me out super bad. And this is like the most horrifying shit. Like the absolute pinnacle of body horror, I feel like. And that's why I was just like, it's so profoundly affecting. And I'm speaking about the movie as a whole, obviously, not just that part. Yeah. But, thematically, and it's about, and you're even seeing flashes of like really just masses of like organic matter while he's having these breakdowns. And it's just, there's something fundamental about that just crawls right up into your psyche and is like, being alive is so scary and disgusting.
Right. The end. Thanks for
You should be
Thanks for
afraid.
showing up, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed this film. I didn't want to sideline the earlier discussion to talk about it, but I'll watch movies like this and I'm so glad it exists and I love it. But like, who is it made for? Like, and why is it so successful even? And if, like, I'm really compelled to watch it and I really enjoy it. So then that must answer that question. But it's just like, it's not Lord of the Rings. It's not mass appeal, whatever. It's horrible. So like, I don't know why people like stuff like this so much. And that's not to say that I think that's bad. It's great.
Well, I think it's specifically, just listen to some of the production videos where Otomo's talking. He just really entered into like the perfect scenario of getting to do exactly what he wanted. Because when he talks about what this movie is about, he's like, it's basically everything I wanted to say at this, however old he is at that time. It's like, it really does feel like that, because it's not, what genre is this really? Like, I guess it's cyberpunk, but that wasn't really a thing. And it only is a thing because this was such a thing that things iterate on it to sell more of that idea. But it really is like one dude's idea and him just figuring it out almost as he goes, right? Maybe that's what is like special about it, or why we can be like, this is good because someone got to do it.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice if more people got to do their thing, but this guy did, and that's cool. But most people don't.
I definitely agree with that. And I
don't know.
I'm sort of like, I guess I'm just asking the question of like, why do people like horror movies or whatever?
Okay.
And so that feels kind of dumb. Like, I don't mean to be asking that. I just think
Well,
that
I
is
think
what I'm asking.
Well, the only answer is that you can only tell certain, you can tell certain stories in certain genres, right? Like,
Yeah.
comedy tells a certain story, romance does, like horror is the same way. Like, without the horror of this, you don't get the themes that it plays to, and you wouldn't be able to address them. Like, it's sort of a chicken and the egg. It's like the body horror is the byproduct of wanting to say this, and there was no other way to say it than with the body horror or something. I don't know.
It feels a lot like just artistic expression. Like, that's just something that we have, like, that people do, that humans just have, and that we like to consume. And it's kind of that, especially if you're contextualizing this and like, this is a reflection of somebody growing up in like post-war Japan after all of that destruction happening and the recovery period. Yeah, it makes sense that you would have a lot to say about it and that people would also be interested. I don't want to say that it's like picking a scab necessarily, but that's kind of, like, I didn't sit down to watch Akira knowing that I was going to feel so good and peppy after I watched it. I knew I was going to feel really gross and uncomfortable, but it's a unique experience.
I think with something like this, we're just very big picture now. Like, I think it is a product of its time. And by being such a product of its time, it's so specific. It connects you with in a nostalgic way with a point in time, whether it is the time you saw it, if you grew up with it, or just trying to think about like, wow, anime in 1989 was like a fucking cool, weird thing, right? It can just be a symbol of that.
Yeah.
Because that's why the t-shirt's such a vibe. You're like, all I need is that t-shirt. I don't even ever need to watch this movie again, but I would wear that t-shirt every day. It's like
so badass.
The idea of Akira kind of transcends really even having to watch the movie.
I do. Yeah, that's true.
Right?
A lot of people have probably absorbed a lot of it without realizing it, without having seen it. So I guess that is true.
Okay, so trying to think of whose story to really follow, because we have the doctor and the colonel kind of having their adventure. We have Tetsuo, who's just sort of like slowly emerging from like the hospital, right? Just like killing people along the way. Then we have Kei and Kaneda just sort of fumbling through their budding relationship. Oh, you know what? Here's a scene I want to talk about. We can go back if I skipped something. Kei and Kaneda are locked in a cell, like they get caught. And Kei starts to explain what this power is, because she's part of a rebel group with her brother, who in the graphic novels it's more clear, the other dude who's kind of
I have always wondered. I like literally never knew.
I think he's just her older brother, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me.
So they've got a mission, which is, I don't know, actually, what is their mission? Is their mission just to expose Akira as like, do they believe in the hope in the way that the civilians seem to?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll answer that when we get a little
yeah,
further.
it's not clear. And something that we totally did not address, or at least like spell out at the beginning of this movie is, well, Tetsuo hits this kid with his bike because he has been busted out. This child, psychic, has been busted out of this government institution by somebody who presumably is also from this like resistance cell.
Mm-hmm.
And then the government, is trying to track them back down so they can take him back. It's not really ever explained why that happened, or
True.
Like, why did this guy break out the kid? How does he know about him? I don't know. And yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't really need to know the specifics. It doesn't really matter.
I think it just makes a cool opening scene.
Yeah, and I just can't tell you, like, what is their goal? I mean, a lot of it seems to be purely kind of fighting against a corrupt government, of which the psychic kids are a part. So I don't know how much is specific to that.
Right. So we do get a little, like, another kind of thematic scene where Kay's explaining this idea that because Canada's like, he's like, what's going on with my friend? What's happening here? I've got a lot of hormones. I'm all over the place. I got this great bike. I'm away from it. He's frustrated. So Kay kind of explains that this power is like, it's like a mutation in that it exposes kind of the basic truth of whatever thing it contaminates. Because she makes this comparison like, well, if you empower an amoeba still just gets bigger, but it still just eats. Like, it doesn't get wise, or it doesn't like retain knowledge simply because it has power. So it's like Tetsuo was still an angry teen, but now he's got all this power, and that's like the real danger. So I feel like, again, we're back to like talking about governments, because it's like, oh, what's this? Nuclear.
Excuse me, sir. Is that
Canada?
It took us way too long to get there.
We're leaving that in. We got to leave the real motorcycle
really
effects. I'm going to turn the gain up on that a bit.
You should put in like a really distant clip of him yelling, Tetsuo, like it's him.
All right, let me rebuild my brain to what I was saying. I was really teetering on the brink of...
It was good. Great. The amoeba thing.
Okay. The amoeba grows, the angry teen grows, but retains its essence. So, like...
It's terrible essence.
Right. It's shitty essence is exposed through its power. So, therefore, like, the culmination of, like, nuclear technology into a bomb simply exposes, like, the shittiness of humanity, right? Is that basically, at this point, that's kind of there seems to be it's a thing. I'm like, is this a nuclear story? Kind of. But then it's a biological story. It's about like loss of innocence in a way also. So I guess, yeah, it's about everything. But right now it seems to be about like nuclear power.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I do. I love that. And honestly, I'm embarrassed to say it hadn't really occurred to me. It feels very profound. And yeah, that makes sense to me. I love that whole idea of, you can give this godlike power to somebody, but if they're not ready for it, it's just going to meet them where they're at.
Right.
And that really seems to sum up a lot of people issues in the world.
I find that mindset, I think, because I think I pulled that out because I'm fascinated with a point in history where that's an important thing to think about. Like, we're all born in the wrong era, It's like, I wish I was born.
You wish you were born in the nuclear times?
No. But I think there's something fascinating. Cut that out. There's something fascinating about the fear of this technology and like into the Cold War and all this like being on the brink of destruction. It's just like, because it's weird, because it's all still there, but we don't like talk about it in that way anymore, right? Like all that radiation, all those bombs, they're somewhere, whether they're buried in concrete or they're just sitting in a warehouse. Like, everything that was bad is still there.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago. So it's just weird that it's like, but we don't think or talk about this stuff in the way like kids that were like teens in the 80s, like had to think about this.
No, it's
That just is interesting.
It's interesting that you're thinking about it because there's a scene that is very low key and easy to kind of not really pay attention during, honestly. But I think is kind of encapsulating all of that. And it's the colonel, the military man. And I think he might be talking to the doctor. I can't quite remember who he's with. He's in an elevator.
Right. The elevator scene. Yeah.
And he's talking about that he's frustrated and he looks through everything, through this military mindset and yada, 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 like you said. But he talks about having this distaste for Neo Tokyo.
Yeah.
Because they've built up so much that they aren't even excited about the recovery anymore. And they've completely moved on, essentially, which is the cyclical nature of history, that exact issue of people just forgetting about it because enough time went past or the next generation turns over and they just weren't there for the big thing. Mm-hmm. And now they don't care. And that's kind of terrifying because there is like the generation where the disaster happens, mm-hmm. the recovering generation who grows up with knowledge and respect for what happened, and then the next generation and the next generation who reap all the benefits of any prosperity from after the fact with absolutely none of the caution.
Right.
And so we just do it again. Seems legit. Checks out.
I'm glad you mentioned that scene. I wrote down the exact line I think you're talking about. The colonel says, "The passion to build has cooled, the joy of reconstruction forgotten. Now it's just a garbage heap made of a bunch of hedonistic fools." Right?
Freaking teens, man.
Just running amok. So I feel like I like the scene a lot because you do get what the colonel's thinking. Like he's not just a headstrong military guy. Like he has his memories that he's responding to and like things that he values and things that he feels are lost and things he feels like his city needs back, or at least his people need back, which I think is nice. It's always good to like give a character a scene like this. So yeah, we've got devastation, we've got war, we've got post-war, and then we have like the dream of being post-war, which is like here we get into the Olympics. So like the climactic scene of this movie, in a place we keep jumping back to and we learn Akira exists underneath, is like the Olympic Plaza being built for what is it? Their 2020 Olympics in this story, or that's in
something
reality?
Very uncomfortable. It's like 2024 or something like that.
Okay. In the real world, we almost had the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, but it was moved to 2021. So but a similar time period in this movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Terrifying. We love it. So
if you look at the history of the Olympics, no Japanese representation for like it was like such a Western thing, right? World War II comes, there was still, which puts a hold on the Olympics. We come back, Tokyo gets the Olympics finally in 1964. And this is like a big thing because it symbolizes like, not peace, I suppose, exactly, but kind of like a bit of a merging or a handshaking of cultures. It's like, well, now we're part of the world in a way, which is clearly like dominated by the West, to like such a heavy degree, especially like post-war where Japan is just shamed as like their emperor, like his status is taken away. He just becomes a figurehead. The Olympics is like the hope of escaping this shitty, like post-war time. And I'm like, I hadn't really, when I had seen this, I'm like, it's at the Olympic Stadium. It's a great way to not have to draw a lot of backgrounds. But I'm like, oh shit, that actually like is super important, I think, to the storytelling and probably the creator, like I'm sure he walked by where that 64 Olympics happened, like, and it probably like plays an actual role in his life in a way that like, I don't have a thing like that I would tell a story around, it's just kind of, I'm just so envious. No.
We're not cool. And it's fine.
Anyway, we'll get, I guess, back to the Olympic Plaza later. But for now, where are we?
That's a great question.
Well, we were in the elevator for a while. We could head back to the streets.
I love the streets. I grew up on the mean streets.
Okay, so...
of Oklahoma City.
Oh, I wrote down a good quote. I don't know who says it.
Well, okay, I think, fun trivia.
Yeah, okay.
Mid-roll trivia. You tell me the quote.
Oh, and you
because
try
I
to
can't.
figure.
Yeah,
All
don't
right,
look at me
perfect.
like I can't tell you the quote.
Okay, here's a quote. I think we're back on the streets. Somebody says, "In all respects, the city is slacking over ripened fruit with the seed waiting at its center. We need only wait for the wind, which will make it fall to fruition. A wind called Akira."
I don't know who said that. I don't know.
I'll
It's a
give you 10
compelling
points
quote,
anyway.
though.
Who would say that? The doctor?
Probably.
I think it might have been the doctor.
Yeah, somebody educated. So, like, not one of the teens, probably, right?
This is the cartoon feelings content people strive for, where
Trivia
we
where we
say
don't
a thing
know
and then
the
we
answer.
just hang it out on the line like some wet laundry.
We're just like you, folks. We're just normal people. We're not superheroes.
Our brains are growing in real time here as we attempt to find some meaning in the please bring us some meaning in the efforts we've put into watching this movie.
Please help.
Now we also see the prophet, the woman prophet on the street, who is a giant character in the books, not physically. She's kind of normal
This is a
sized.
normal size character.
But you know the scene I'm talking about? You see
Yes.
when we cut to like the massive crowd shots, again, another like
It's-
pinnacle of like cell animation.
You get this flavor of the cult that's been
Yeah.
building, which you only see in like scenes like this, where it's people on the street generally who are doing very much like the end is nigh kind
Yep.
of vibe, chanting and like.
But in a way, the opposite, because aren't they hopeful?
yes, a little bit.
Yeah. Because she says, or there's something written or graffiti, "The time has come, Lord Akira, the enlightened, is awakening." Like, is that
True?
Are they ready to die, or are they ready to be?
Unclear to me, honestly, because I read online in a review that she only shows up in one scene. That is not true. She definitely shows up later.
Oh, in the movie?
It's kind of in the same area of the movie, I guess, but because she dies when Tetsuo blows up this bridge, because they're all following him. But she's saying some really intense stuff about like purifying yourself in fire and stuff like that, where it feels very, what is your actual goal here? Is it that you believe in like actual enlightenment and hopeful stuff, or that kind of, well, we're going to burn it all down to make it new again sort of a thing? It's kind of unclear what's going on there.
Right. Everybody wants a new start, but basically everybody hates Neo Tokyo.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it
They're
does
just
feel
sort of
very
stuck with
like
it.
radical death culty to me.
Yeah.
More than we think he's actually gonna sort of like save us. But in the same way that Christian people on the streets doing this are like the end is nigh, like repent sinners type of a thing. It's like, well, we're all gonna die. They just want you to like be saved before you die.
Yeah.
But you're still gonna die. That it has that kind of energy.
Right. Okay, then we get back to we get a great government meeting with all kinds of like weird skin men, like their skin is so like corpse like. Intentionally, I'm sure.
Makes you think.
It's like just a great cast of awful looking cartoon characters.
Look like people that you've seen before in your life.
Right. And it's the type of people I imagine being at these meetings that I would never in a million years, if I live a million lives, I'll never be one of them,
No.
I don't think.
Nor should you be.
I hope not. But we got the military. We have the colonel making his point. One of those like tragic, like all too real points where he threatens. He's like, if you cut any of my budget, even a fraction of a tenth of a thousandth of a point, tens of thousands of people will die, almost like it's a threat. So he's like, well, I hold my status in that, like, under the threat of extreme death, you can never take away any of the money going to me, as like all these other programs just fall by the wayside.
I'm gonna whip that out
No one's cleaning
next
that
performance
school.
review. See how that goes.
All right. So the colonel thinks Akira is coming. It's like an inevitability, I guess. There's the return because of, I guess, Tetsuo speaks to that.
Well, and
for
so
him.
maybe we should talk about Akira now
Okay.
a little bit. We've
He's a little cutie.
talked about a little wee lad, a handsome young lad of 10. I don't know. He's anime. It's impossible for me to guess his age.
40,
Child.
10,
Yeah.
who knows?
Bunch of jars, bits and pieces. Well, yeah, you to make a long story very short, when Tetsuo goes underneath the Olympic Stadium and pops open the ice capsule, Akira is in there, but he's a tube. These a bunch of little tubes of brainstem and
sad
disassembled parts.
Do you find that sad or just like, okay, weird?
I loved it.
Okay.
I do want to talk about this.
Okay,
this isn't where I was going, but I do want to talk about it because Akira is an actual character in the graphic novels, which I only found out recently because I didn't know that or anything about that. And I am just fascinated because I love that he's not a character in this. I love the reveal. Tetsuo is getting sort of these psychic visions from Akira or about Akira. It's not super clear, but that's how he even knows anything about Akira. Starts to get a hint that he's out there, and he sees flashes of his actual face, and he goes on his path to go find him. Seems like this big deal. Is he going to open it up and like he's going to wreak havoc on the world? Like, who is this guy? And for it to just be opened up and be like, he was dead this whole time. And the scientists took apart his body, put him up into jars, and buried him here. Like, there's something so intense and, I don't know, moving to me. The idea that Akira was so scary to people that they had to... Ostensibly, they say, like, we did a bunch of tests and then we saved what was left, you know, for future research, whatever. But what's really conveyed to me is that they were fucking terrified of him. And so they disassembled his parts and buried him deep down and froze him and just, like, locked that shit away and just hoped no one would mess with it. Like, it's just fascinating.
Yeah. Right. And building the Olympic stadium on top is, like, the ultimate way to try to forget.
Yeah, cover it up and move on.
Put it right on top and like obscure it completely. I always feel it's an interesting feeling thinking about what had happened to like get to the point where you're like taking a boy's body apart and putting him in jars. Cause it's such a powerful thing. Cause obviously you feel bad for this boy subjected to this, but he was a danger. So if you were one of those scientists, like what would you do? Like that's a real thing to think about. You're like, would I have done the same thing? Like no matter who you are, is the result always the same? Like, does Akira end up in a jar no matter who that scientist is? Like wherever your morals lie, is there just, this sort of thing is going to happen if something like this is presented to you?
Yeah, I don't know. That's like, it's something that you watch this movie and you're like, I don't want to think about that, which is everything about this movie, actually.
Yeah, there's no real hero. It's like one of those, like, there's no heroes or villains, really. It's just sort of like people in circumstances.
Yeah, that's why I like that. Like, Kaneda's like a kind of an asshole, and people are kind of like, oh, he's disrespectful to women. It's like everybody's like that in the real world. People are just who they are, and they have bad qualities. Sometimes really bad qualities. And they're also people with motivations that might make sense. They're not like, meh. Like the doctor, I think, is an interesting character because he's so earnestly interested in learning stuff. And it does cross a little bit into mustache twirling at points where he's clearly poking the bear because he really wants to find out more about his science, like his research. And that's not great. And he probably shouldn't have done that. But at the end, he's still, like, up until the last minute, he's analyzing this data and just being so moved by it that you're kind of like, I get it, at least. I mean, I don't think I would be you. Plus, I don't know anything about this kind of science. But everybody, like, you understand the natural human drive to want to know what is going on and why things happen the way that they do. So it's really hard to look at him and be like, really the only ones that you can just are the politicians that don't play a huge role. Yeah. There's one guy we see who it turns out was funding the resistance cell, I guess, to some degree. Mm-hmm. I don't think we get a lot of clarity with what's going on there. That to me is still kind of like a mystery that I haven't thought enough about, I guess, to unravel. And he ends up like, he's running because a military coup is coming to get him. He's like ill and he's like cramming pills into his mouth. He ends up like having a heart attack and dies, just unrelated. But he's like stuffing money into a briefcase, like papers and stuff, like trying to escape. That's like, it's very cartoonish. Like this guy's clearly just a bad dude. That's about as bad as it gets.
Nezu, I think his name is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. You always need that type of character in these type of stories.
Yeah, and he's barely in it, really.
Because like that's sort of some of the magic of this movie. There's a lot of unspoken aspects of the world. Like the way advertising is everywhere. It's kind of that cyberpunky Blade Runner-y thing where it's like the world is so rich. Part of the cool thing is we don't know where it all came from, other than it's sprung from money or the greed for money. So you got to have a character like this who just represents this
is where all those big buildings came from.
Yeah. Okay, so through all this, we've got now. There's a nice balance through. I do get a little bored in the middle, but there is some fun to be had with Tetsuo and Kei's escape from the tunnels, which I feel like some of that animation is amazing. When the military show up in those little like single pilot the
little spears,
but yeah, they're like the way the guns and the way they frame the shooting with those like long barreled guns. It's very cool. The book does a great job with it too, but it's very different. There's a lot more exploration of those tunnels, and it gets very like maze-like. But I thought that scene was really good. The end.
I agree. Sometimes that's all that needs to be said.
Just wanted to point it out and appreciate. I think it just really reveals Tetsuo's character.
Cool shit.
Yeah. He's got to get back to that bike, basically, I think.
Oh, do you mean Kaneda?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Tetsuo's, I mean, it could be. I don't know.
No.
He also likes the bike. So.
Tetsuo's back hanging out with his weird bear.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Well, I feel like that stuff ties to the Akira thing, right? Is he, who's evoking those visions? Do you think Akira, the loss of his childhood, the way he's kind of like trapped at a certain age, like or are those Tetsuo's memories? So basically, if you don't know what we're talking about, we have this scene. Tetsuo's in his bed, starts having a weird dream. He sees a little bear kind of walk across the bed, and then it goes away.
It's very cute initially.
It's very cute, but moves in a weird, janky way.
Yeah, but it's so tiny.
Yeah, it's small. It's nice.
There's one shot during this where it's actually like 3 toys show up, and it's a bear,
a little car,
climbing up onto the pillowcase and brings his little friends up.
Yep.
It's like a little bunny, and I'm like, well, this is the cutest thing I've ever seen. And then it gets awful, so it's not the cutest thing ever. It's actually terrible.
Right. So the cute versions go away, and then from the background emerge it's a great piece of animation where all these like artifacts, they're not really from the room. They're like pieces of like wire and like.
But some of them are objects,
nondescript tech stuff.
What makes that piece of animation so freaking good is that any other production would have had these just amorphous elements coming together, and like you can see each and identify individual objects coming together to make this bear. Like, I think one of them's like a little backpack or something.
Yep.
And you can just watch it travel up into place, and it all works. Like, that shot killed a man.
Yeah.
I would bet. I bet.
Yes.
If
not that one, the giant baby at the end.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah, that bear forming is amazing. It's also subtle, too. It's not well lit. It's like in the background in the shadow. So it's not even like putting a whole, but like it made me think of, remember when we saw Wreck-It Ralph 2 and there's like the scene at the end where it's like a bunch of Ralphs forming. I remember you being like, this sucks.
I was like, I hate this so much. Yeah.
It feels like it wants to be a thing like this, like something kind of weirdly gross and familiar yet really undefined.
Well, it's certainly gross, but in a different way.
Yeah. Okay, so we get the giant bear. We get the weird bunny, and then we get the kind of like Cars Pixar car, but like horrific.
So sick. It reminds me of the Brave Little Toaster. Well, you haven't seen Brave Little Toaster.
Oh, we'll get to Brave Little Toaster eventually.
Okay, cool. Anyway, that reminds me of Brave Little Toaster.
In fact, it's a lot like Akira, I imagine.
I mean, a little bit.
And some of its horrific elements, or it's anthropomorphic.
Very true. It's baby's first Akira.
Okay, yeah.
I think. So, but I do want to get at this scene because I don't know what's going on. Most of this movie is like, what? I don't think they are his memories, though. I think it has more to do. I did not realize this is what was happening the first time I watched this movie. I'm going to say that a lot, probably. I don't know if I should be embarrassed by that or not. But it's the kids. It's the psychic kids are like controlling these creatures. And it's like they're trying to kill him.
I didn't get that. Oh.
Yeah.
Are they?
And,
okay. They're trying to stop him.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not 100% sure. Even now, I feel like I should be able to mentally follow the timeline enough to know how much they know about him and why they do it. Because initially, they seem sort of curious. And I do think maybe they're just checking him out. And he reacts hostily. I mean, which kind of makes sense because he has no idea what's going on. But they start to attack him almost right away. As soon as they get big and scary, they're trying to attack him.
Well, the girl in the pink bed, I think she says this is a problem.
Yeah.
And like, whereas
I think
the kid that got hit by the bike, he's more like, oh, I want to help him because he met him.
Yeah, and that kid seems like the most childish.
Like sympathetic, yeah.
Yeah, of all of them, like a little more naive, out of all of them. And the woman girl seems like their leader in a way.
Yeah,
or like
she seems
guide.
to have, or at least thinks she has the best vision of what is to come. Or
if I remember right, they go away when Tetsuo climbs out of bed. I don't know. He's trying to get away from them. They're bleeding milk, which I find is utterly appalling and horrifying. Just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah,
so great though.
Yeah, that's worse than blood. Bleeding milk is.
It's truly like it's something else.
It's a big 80s thing because Aliens it's just like
I don't, but I wonder if it's because they're conveying this sort of childish sensibility that there's so much to talk
kids
about.
Kids are full of milk.
Well, and historically otherwise how would they grow? I don't know. Gross. Ew. No offense to any kids out there.
If you're a nursing child listening to this, we're sorry.
Or a mom, honestly, my bad. I don't actually mean it.
Oh, that's sure. The other side of
I was thinking of kids first, but yeah, no, that's fair too. I just like it aesthetically is so horrifying. If you look it up, you will know what we were talking about if you haven't seen it. The bear is just dripping milk out of like all of these different orifices in his body. Like it's just something to behold. During this sort of like semi-psychic, semi-physical struggle, Tetsuo steps on a glass, like a cup, and it shatters, and some of the pieces get stuck in his foot. And I'm pretty sure the kids go like, oh my God, blood. And they peace out.
Right.
They like, that is enough for them. And that's what's so interesting to me is I can't really understand what's going on there. But I do think the important thing to take away is that they cannot fight him themselves for whatever reason.
Right.
I don't know if they just can't withstand him with their own powers, which is probably true. But if they're also kind of stunted,
I guess it's superhero logic. It's like at any given moment, somebody's more powerful than the other.
Yeah,
right?
But I think there's something going on with the kid thing that I haven't quite been able to unpack fully either. Can that just be the title of this episode? I haven't been able to unpack this.
I haven't either. I just haven't been saying it out loud as much as you. Well, I'm confused as well. You clarified that scene a little more for me, though. I didn't really understand what the
I feel like both of us are learning a lot about this. I'm like, I never thought about that. But this used to grate, actually. I didn't like this. Because I don't like the like scary kid in a horror movie. I always hated that trope. And in this one, it's not really what they're doing, but they have like all of these psychic kids who are timeline-wise, like at least in their 30s, actually. And they look horrific. They're child size, but physically aged.
Yeah.
Pretty significantly, but they live in some kind of like creepy giant
They have
nursery.
like a concrete nursery where they're being kept.
Bizarre. And I think it only works in anime logic because if you think about it really, it's like, of course they wouldn't be. That doesn't make any sense. But for some reason, they're kept in this perpetual faux childhood.
Yeah.
And it's so strange because one of them, the boy we haven't really talked about much yet, but he's like a little businessman kind of like in his suit sort of, but he's in a flying chair. I don't think he has use of his legs. Yeah, he sort of gives off like I am a business adult vibe. So like thematically, I guess we're kind of getting the like they're staying in this childlike state for a reason. And reading about the graphic novels, there's this whole plot line where they talk more about the drugs that they give the kids that suppresses the powers actually to prevent them getting sick or getting injured from it. And they make a point in the movie a couple times of being like, hey, Tetsuo, if you maybe didn't do this all the time, like you probably wouldn't be having these horrible headaches and like take your medicine. But they don't really get into it enough to start talking about that. So I would presume, I have deduced that the kids are stunted in this way because they've been taking this medication and because they've sort of been cooperating the whole time. And I think that would explain why they're in the state that they are and that they can't quite compete with somebody who's basically willing to burn his own self. Right. To just kind of go all in.
Yeah, he's the Joker. Tetsuo is just like the chaotic.
I knew it. Everybody's the Joker.
Yeah, somebody, I mean, I feel like in any good story like this, it is
There's
just
a
a Joker character, right?
So true. So anyway, pivoting to talking about the Joker.
What's your favorite Joker? Okay, we talked about the dripping milk. That's good.
And we loved it.
I had some points on, before you explained the whole giant teddy bear scene to me, I'm like, is this how Andy from Toy Story, does he have dreams like this?
I literally thought that. I told Neil that the other day, that like
Good.
Toy Story from any other perspective would be a freaking horror.
Right.
Well, because I was thinking about what if it was pet toys? Like Toy Story for pet toys is like you exist to be murdered.
Yeah.
And that opened up a pit of despair that I decided to just step back out of.
Yeah, just your own. That one's your fault. That's not coming from the movie.
But it's definitely Akira, my same deal. Like in reality, it's a horror show, and we just paste a glossy veneer over it, like Toy Story 2.
All right, so Tetsuo and Kei kind of fly out Aladdin.
Kaneda.
No, Kei, his rebel girl.
No. Tetsuo, you said.
Right.
Wrong boy. Different boy.
Okay. Well,
Other boy.
This is just going to be like the little gerbil guy from Arcane that I never figured out his name.
You don't. Yeah, you're right. It
Proper
doesn't matter.
nouns. Okay.
You all know who we're talking.
Kaneda and Kei fly out of those sewers like Aladdin style. They're like on their little...
Yeah, magic carpet ride.
Kind of.
Whole new world.
It is kind of like that. And this is pre-Aladdin, so I feel like Aladdin's just really drawing a lot from...
Akira, I always thought that.
Okay. Now, they just happen to tune into like a radio frequency, so they understand what Tetsuo's up to. Of course, classic radio frequency.
Yeah, it was like,
like,
they have like a cop.
he's on the go. We got to get him. Oh, no. Let's head up.
He's on the corner of blah, blah, and such and such.
So we blast out of the underground. Tetsuo's, he's turned pretty dark now. Like he returns to the bar with that great jukebox and just obliterates it and kills their drug dealing barback buddy, which is sad.
Yeah.
And now we get back, throughout all this, some of the friends from the gang keep showing up. I can't remember any of their names. I can barely remember any of the main characters' names. Or even the phrase main character.
No, you're doing great. Listeners, he's doing great.
So there's kind of an energy level here with some of these characters where they go to 11 real quickly about something that is confusing why. So like Tetsuo wants some drugs to clear the headaches. He goes to the bar, gets the drugs, kills the guy. Then one of his buddies shows up. You know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He gets mad at him, his old friend, for a certain reason, thinks he can like take him down. And then does he get himself killed there?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's two guys, they walk in and they're like, oh my God, like this is so crazy. What happened? And then they notice Tetsuo, who's just sulking in there, I guess. Start to put the pieces together, figure out that he did it. And yeah, one of them goes to confront him, not knowing anything about what's going on. And I think he gets like a bookshelf dropped on him or something, but
nice.
But the other one makes it out because he meets
we
up
see him later
with Kaneda at some point later to kind of be like, this is what happened, you know?
Does he help him get his bike back?
I
Doesn't
do
he bring
think,
the bike? Unless I'm mixing that up with something from the book.
I think that is how Kaneda gets his bike back for
Yeah.
his cool final ride to the Olympics.
Okay, and now Kei is kind of explaining some things here. I wrote down some phrases. I don't know if I made these up or dreamed them or they're actually lines from the mirror.
Akira
movie.
poem.
Let's see. Tell me if this is from the movie or I made it up. Does she say Akira is ultimate energy? Maybe.
Yes.
Memories are the universe hidden in matter.
Yes.
That's in the movie.
I think these
That's a
are
pretty
all
cool
from
line.
that scene where they're in the cell together and she's talking about.
Oh, right. Oh, there's a nice little moment here that I think speaks to the friendship a little more. Kind of the nice thing that starts to happen once we get out of the sort of the building dread of what's going to happen and everybody's kind of like doing their own little things and they're about to all come together. The friendship stuff does start to make a little more sense in the third act. Once a friend dies and the friends are kind of reunited and they're seeing like what Tetsuo has become. Because Yamagata, that's the kid that got the book.
Yeah, he dies.
Okay,
yeah.
He has like the rising sun like sweatshirt with the sleeves cut off. It's a good look. He gets killed, and then the other friend brings his bike, and they give him like a teen punk funeral, and they crash his bike into the wall. I like that scene.
That part is good. It's like the glimpse that if we were making this movie, It would be way worse. And we would be...
Just you and me.
Not just because of us, but because I don't think other people could do it. I don't know. It feels very much of itself.
Right, too.
But we'd have scenes at the beginning where it's like they're all just broing out together. And there is none. That's like the only one that you get. And most of them are not there. But you're like, okay, so this is where you sort of get the vibe. Like, you were all in this gang together.
Right.
You guys were bros, and you have like this kind of like bro gang code.
Yeah.
It's just none of it is laid out for us to see.
No, it's like you want more of this. I think seeing stuff like the George Miller, like the way he does Mad Max and the way he does world building and the way all these kind of, I guess it's kind of like cargo cult characteristics, like a culture that's grown up on these very superficial things, like we love cars and gas and bullets and guns and swearing and like having a girlfriend. The end. So when there is a teen funeral, of course all they do is crash his fucking bike into a wall.
Yeah, bro.
And it's like perfectly beautiful, but also perfectly boneheadedly stupid.
Yeah, like why would you? Honestly, it's very dangerous, and you think like one of them is like, oh my god, like is he going to kill himself?
Right.
And that's the thought process that's happening.
Yeah, it's like totally nihilistic and like the great kind of stylized way. So I like that scene. What else do I like? Well, now there's just more stuff that looks cool. We get some military fighting. We get like the showdown in the streets, which starts to feel a little Godzilla-ish.
Yeah.
As you were kind of talking about that, like the sort of assured destruction of a city because of this like character who's like a metaphor for nuclear power or something.
You do kind of get... I can never really think of Tetsuo as badass because he's not really.
No.
But this is like the closest I think you would get to. It's like when
he puts the red cape on. And
yeah,
like,
which is kind of hilarious actually. And you realize like later in the movie, you're like, yeah, that looks really awesome. It's a character design, but it's such like a punky little brat thing to do. It's literally like curtains from from a department store window. So ridiculous. But it's like the tanks are shooting real ordnance at him and then being like, ugh, like when he doesn't die.
Yeah.
And that is just, it's kind of a scene that we have seen before. Maybe Akira came up with it first. I don't actually know. But that you're always just like, yeah, yeah, this guy's really gonna kick your ass.
Right.
It's just like a cool moment in a film.
Yeah.
That's like one of the only like, this is just cool and I don't feel gross right now watching this.
This whole third act, I feel like, is so derivative of every kind of superhero-y movie that comes after, where it's really just kind of driven by action and then two characters that are on opposing sides that maybe were once kind of friends. Like you see that in every other Marvel movie. Just sort of everybody's flying around, the friend's fighting the friend, and hopefully they land somewhere that makes sense. But this is done well. But it's like, why wouldn't you want to have a scene like this or like a movie that climaxes in this way with... I love the way his power looks. Basically any orb or orb implying negative space in this movie is just fucking perfect. Like he has like a force field that he puts off where things sort of like ricochet and you see just kind of like the drawn shape of something curving around an orb. It's so
cool
perfect.
to not see the stupid, like what's crackling with energy or whatever.
No, yeah, you don't see that magic.
The first time I think he does it, or one of the first times he's breaking out of the government hospital and he's in the hallway and he just like annihilates some guys and the room around him. And since the hallway is so small, you can just see the cube of the hallway become impacted with the concavity of the sphere of his... And it's just like, killed a man probably animating that scene. But it does. It looks so good and it feels way crunchier than like any Marvel thing where it'd be like sparkling or whatever and his eyes would change color. Like we don't do any of that stuff in this.
There's that crappy thing that's said as a joke where like the city's a character in a story, right? It's like New York City's a character in X. But it's funny because it also is true. Like I think it's pointed out in Scott McCloud's book, Understanding Comics, where he talks about transitions, visual transitions in stories, how certain cultures play to certain ones more than others. Anime, manga, he poses play to aspect in a very heavy way. So if you have a scene like Miyazaki, you often see like grass slowly moving or like doors opening and closing with like highly rendered detail. This you see like everything break. When a building is collapsing, you really see it from like every angle. When that bridge collapses, there's like 7 cuts of different shots of it, right? An American movie, even though indulges in the same things, doesn't do it in that way where you really get a sense of the geometry, the people, the helicopter above, what's going on below, and also just the pure physics of it rendered at that level. This movie just does that in so many scenes. When that water tower falls in the beginning with the neon on it,
yeah,
it's like iconic.
Well, this is just, I am off on a, thinking about Arcane doing the same things, obviously with the same reasoning. But
yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the bridge thing, because sort of repeating ourselves at this point, but I think it bears repeating because this is what sticks with me the most in this movie, I think, is somehow this movie, with no real people in it, because it is animated and a cartoon, makes me so much more cognizant of the immense loss of human life during it, what is happening. And it's just so funny because you can watch any Marvel movie and they are just absolutely wrecking the shit. Not to dump on Marvel, sorry for bringing it up, because we both enjoy Marvel movies.
It's only because they point it out. Sometimes in the movie they're like, oh, human death, but it's you actually
shut up.
aren't.
Yeah, no. And New York City's getting blown to bits, but you don't see a single person be injured in any way because that's what it is. That's what Marvel is. And that's fine. It's, it just is that type of thing, but it can feel so sanitized. And it's people are dying on this bridge and it feels so real to me. And it that's when I start feeling upset as we're entering the end of the movie. Because people are tumbling down the bridge, and you're seeing it break in segments.
Yeah.
And there's one quick shot of the bridge collapsing, where somebody's trying to run back to the main part of the bridge, and somebody's reaching out for help, and somebody's trying to pull him, but it's that part of the bridge also is falling, and all of those people, they all die, and it's just a little overwhelming. It just really feels like whoever made this movie actually saw some shit in a way that people making Marvel movies haven't.
Yeah. And even if they didn't, they believe if you're going to do it in a way that has the real impact it should, not just because it is a cool thing or a thing to get you to the next beat, right? It's if the bridge is collapsing, it's important to the people that are on the bridge in all the different ways it can be. It's empathy building or something, or making it, giving it a true value and not just a cinematic value or something.
Yeah, it just feels oh yeah, this stuff really happens. People really die. This is about real stuff. Even though this is a fantasy story that's happening, that part just makes it feel real. It's almost like The Breadwinner in a way. That movie was an animated movie about war that made me really feel the impact of people there who have experienced these tragic things. And it's not the same, but sometimes it has the ability to do that in a way that other stuff doesn't, or is not trying to. Yeah.
So, all right. So we got these kind of bigger war shots, very impactful, loss of life. The city is falling apart. And now we kind of zoom in. Unless I'm missing something, now we kind of are arriving at the Olympic site and the kind of big final showdown with our main friends.
Our best buds.
Yeah. So there's a sign that says 147 days to the Olympics. Did you notice that in the movie? So it's because it hasn't happened yet. It's it's coming. They're building it. So when the 2020 Olympics were delayed because of COVID, somebody built that prop
Jesus
and put it somewhere. I don't remember where it was. I think it was attached to a university or not Olympic Plaza, but just somewhere in a city, because on the sign, it's dates, but there's also graffiti that's, it's the people coming, the branding says, let's all come together and do this together, 147 days to the Olympics. And then somebody graffitis, how about we don't do this or something? So it's just really capturing the magic of 2 years of COVID and probably living in Japan when the I remember watching the Olympics and being cool, I guess we're getting back to normal. But to be there, it was probably awful because people are coming from all over the world. Little did we know, or probably did know, but couldn't admit it to ourselves. It was so far from over.
Yeah, we should
and
not.
And people were protesting. So it's just funny how like you were saying, kind of the cycles of dread, even if it's the stakes aren't as high as what the story is proposing, like we can still have these moments where it's like things are not okay. It's like there is no good. You think you can just have the Olympics and everything's okay. Like there's
what?
people involved here. So I don't know. I just thought that was like an interesting, weird little thing to happen so recently. And also, this is crazy. When the Olympics was supposed to happen in 2020, they built the plaza. In part, a proposed part of the opening ceremony was to have the Akira bike blast through a wall into the stadium.
Why would they do that?
I don't know. I mean,
it'd be really cool to see the Akira bike.
Like, this could be misinformation, but like the metaphor of that is like, why is that something you want to evoke? Yeah, okay, Akira is cool, but it's
underneath this stadium, ladies and gentlemen. We have.
Like, what would the American version of that be? Like, you're not going to have a parade and have somebody dressed as, like, the Joker show up and have, like,
you
a
would have
toxic
Bane
gas balloon.
show up and be I'm going to blow up the baseball stadium.
Bane comes out and sings the national anthem at, like, the Super Bowl.
Oh, God. We would, though. That's the thing. America is tacky like that.
Right. I mean, I guess it's just that. It's just weird. It's like, at this point, it's just an iconic thing. It doesn't really have any meaning, apparently.
I think that's like everything centering on the motorcycle.
It is a cool bike. I said it myself. I was like, it's just...
One of my favorite quotes I read from Otomo. Let's just go all over the place right now. Little intermish. But I read a quote from Otomo that was like, it was never the same twice, like when I drew it, because I didn't have a design. I just drew it and it came out different.
Red chunks.
And I want to go in through the books and see if that's true, like multiple drawings of the bikes. And he was just like, it just looked cool.
I was actually thinking that when I was looking, because I mean, the rendering of backgrounds when we see a background is so much detail, but then you realize you only ever see it once. We don't return to that spot. Because that's what sucks about comics, is having to draw a scene again. Mm-hmm. I mean, it sucks enough to just draw characters more than once, but like, so I'm looking at a page.
Why do we do this?
We have like a funicular type of vehicle going down a lift, and we have a million tubes and pipes. And we see other tubes and pipes, but we never see those exact ones again. And I think that's sometimes the only thing.
You know, they say you never step on the same tube twice.
Yeah, I love that idiom.
It's idiot. You're thinking of the word idiot.
Oh, okay. All right. Back at the Olympic site. Now, all our friends are here. And now we basically, if you had the script, the shooting script for all the dialogue in this, which, fun fact, this was the first anime where they did all the dialogue first and then animated to it. They hadn't been doing that. I
read that and it freaked me out. Like, what?
Come on.
I didn't know that. That doesn't make any... Like, I know that we dub over, you know, when you bring anime over to, you know, the West, like dubbing over English, sure. But you just animated it first and then had people be like, I'm saying the line. Like, I'm saying the lines now.
Squeezing lines in. Yeah.
That's, I mean, in a way, I guess it makes sense. And it's just one of those things. It's like storyboarding. Like, that makes a lot more sense to do it this way as a general rule. And then... I don't know. Somebody had to be the first person to think of it, I guess. I don't know.
Probably well, I mean, like Disney had been doing. I guess it's just a budget thing. They probably knew they should, but other productions, but just like couldn't afford.
Oh, yeah, that's where all the extra budget for Akira probably went to. Was just that.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the animation.
Right. Yeah. Just having a bunch of people in a room screaming, Canada! Yeah, so that's basically the last act of the movie. It's two friends just yelling at each other and being really shitty to each other. It's like your friend has been having headaches for at least 5 hours. I don't know how long of a period of time this movie takes place over. Is it just a day?
It's got to be multiple days.
2 days?
Yeah, unclear.
It's like 36 hours maybe. But he's gone through a lot. Yeah, he's killed a lot of people. Yeah, the world, or at least this city, is ending. But Canada is just like, oh, you little baby, like, stop being that. Like, look at me, I'm cooler than you. Stop being a loser.
Is he wrong, though?
No, I mean, he is a little loser.
Yeah, you're being kind of a little bit.
With his stupid little cape, his little kid cape.
I love that, though.
Which, when you look at it, when he's just standing and not being, like, supercharged, he does look like just a goofy little Where the Wild Things Are kid in a costume.
Yeah, which he absolutely is.
Yeah.
He's a little punk.
So now we meet Akira in all his forms. We see the big... I love the shot. There's a great shot in the book where you see it. I can't find the page. There's no time. We're out of time.
There's
Holy
no
shit,
time.
I found it. So there's Akira.
Yeah.
I'll point it at the microphone.
See?
But I just
See?
I love that weird, it's, so Akira is inside what seems to be like a
cryo tumor.
Yeah, some kind of, exactly, perfect. I had like 90 words I was going to just sort of spill out of my mouth, but cryotumor is exactly right. That's got a sticker that says Akira, just in case somebody makes it down here and they don't know.
What's in there?
Hey, they like knock on the little door. Because for some reason there's also a door.
Yeah, I guess so. So his body can come away.
Yeah.
Although I guess it makes sense in that one because in the graphic novels again, he is a boy inside of there.
He's
in
a boy in an igloo
body.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie, he is in many pieces.
Right. But so the Akira chamber, the tumor comes up, and emerges, and then I'm following the Akira storyline. We can get back to the body horror of Tetsuo in a moment.
Big baby.
So Akira, the tubes break during the battle, and then he reforms. Is a vision? Or does he reform and that's why they had to separate him? Like, is he literally standing there, Akira, or is he just the essence of the boy as a projection from maybe his psychic friends or something?
Yeah, that's
does it
a
really
good question.
Even matter?
I don't know. Because by the time we get to the end, it's apparent that Akira is still alive in whatever form.
Okay, he is.
He definitely is. I don't know. I guess
or at least he's a power source that enables
Yeah.
the little group to do what they do.
Well, like it is interesting because I think a lot of the ending has to do with, okay, so the psychic stuff is for real, and also it's this greater power that can take us elsewhere. And it is interesting because yes, shamelessly I Googled it all up and down the internet when it ended because I'm like, what does this mean? I want to know I want to know what the people think happened, basically.
What's the consensus?
Yeah, which I'm like, what are the theories about what just happened? Because the ending is fairly ambiguous. And I'll skip the big baby part so we can linger over that in a minute.
Okay.
But Tetsuo turns into a big baby, essentially. Stuff is going awry, and his powers are way too big for his tiny teen brain. The three psychic kids come to the Olympic Stadium where Tetsuo's arranged all of the Akira jars, and they're sort of like praying to them in a way. And Akira kind of comes back in a vision. I don't know if he ever actually sort of physically manifests.
Right.
But the kids see him again, and there are some flashbacks at the end of the movie to indicate to you, like, these kids all actually knew each other when Akira was alive and when these kids were actually children. So they had a relationship. And Akira basically triggers another psychic event, causes this big blast. And how the Wikipedia describes it, and many other places online, is that he creates a singularity that pulls Tetsuo into another dimension, basically.
Yeah.
And that they are ascending to a higher plane of reality.
Okay.
And that's why right before the credits, there's this really beautiful black and white, I don't even know, abstract animation. It's sort of like you're zooming into like a point in space, and you hear Tetsuo say, "I'm Tetsuo, animator and illustrator." And
oh shit! This show just cycled back to the beginning.
It just started over right now. And that's, I guess, him awakening in this new reality that he's living in, and so. All of this would have to just go into the realm of pure speculation because it's not in the text. But my thought was like, okay, so Akira could handle this to some degree at some point and moved on to this next thing. And he's sort of like always been here. I don't know how important it is that all of his bits and pieces were still there. It's not super clear what's happening. But he's definitely...
No, I think you said what's happening.
Yeah.
They bring him to another...
Just beyond
reality,
any other detail. Like, what does that
right?
mean? Where's Akira been this whole time? I don't know. But he's clearly been out there.
Yeah.
He's still extant in some way. So I don't know. I don't know if that was just like a momentary vision, if he's like manifesting in his head. Like, I would assume that maybe that is part of what's happening, that the psychic kids all seem to just be naturally connected. Even, they all have this thing in common, but like they can communicate to each other telepathically.
Yeah.
maybe Tetsuo, maybe Akira is actually talking to him and communicating with him actively. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess in a mechanical, plotty way, it's like he's the missing element of the, I don't know, 4 points of these psychic powers. When they reunite, they're able to overtake this chaotic energy and control it in an alternate reality, right? I guess that's like the simple, plotty way of looking at it. The kind of more magical way is, this is because I've been reading a lot of alchemy and it's kind of broken my brain to think about this stuff. But so the power of Akira, in alchemy, you have like this pursuit of the philosopher's stone, which is basically to say like, there's a theory that there is one element that everything comes from, right? And then that's like your path to like true wisdom, because even the biblical world is actually an illusion created by a demon, and there's something beyond that like the God we thought we knew is actually like not even, there's something else.
That totally makes sense.
And that's where we get. So there's this like essence of power that Akira is just like the singular, the one thing, which in alchemy also it's, they say it's like, it's in your spine. Like every human has this essence. It's like, but how do we extract it and find it? Like there's yoga, there's all these things, there's ways to do it. But so Akira is just a spine. So he's that power. We take it and now we can kind of like break open this shitty illusion of a world and like live in like a pure reality. And that's where those characters go. I don't know. This is another religious allegory. Like I decided Arcane was also at some point.
All the characters have their own religions.
Right.
Tag yourself. Which religion are you? There's one line. It's the last thing the Doctor says before he is crushed under the weight of debris. He's in his lab. We haven't talked about the very discordant 3D animated element, which is this little ring of energy. There's not much to say except for it's very distracting to me because the frame rate is too high and it's just too high tech for this movie. They were trying,
but they shouldn't have.
I was like, how is this the one thing that has aged poorly?
They just needed to do it. They like had access.
Yeah, and it's just easy to generate that. I don't know, but it's just kind of funny.
Thank God they didn't apply it to like the powers that the characters' powers, and it's just like a little rendering of
this movie is timeless and looks fantastic. And then there's this little thing, and I'm like, that's so weird. Like, what?
It's like, oh yeah, it's 1989. I forgot.
Very strange. But he's in this lab, and he's been obsessing over this little ring of power because it shows the different power signatures, I guess. It's not explained at all in any way what this really means. For these psychics, and like Akira's is this huge dome thing, and Tetsuo's is this somewhat big wiggly ring thing. And then at the very end, when Akira shows up again and he creates the singularity, it's reflected that same sort of thing is happening with that user interface, this little ring thing, and it turns into this little point of light. And the Doctor's in there looking at it and reading all these data outputs, ticker tape coming out of the machines and stuff. And he's like, if this is right, then we're looking at the birth of a new universe. And then he gets squashed to death. And I was like, so that must be what it is. It's like literally making a new place for them all to go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what does the data say that it's the birth of a new universe? Like, we don't need to know that. He's a doctor. He knows.
Right. So does that mean whoever wrote that software knew that was a possibility and programmed that into
it just
acknowledge that
There's a really good scene in the movie The Martian. This is a departure where Donald Glover's character is trying to come up with a way to get the guy home, whatever. He's on Mars. Whatever. There's a really dumb scene where he goes into a supercomputer, like plugs his computer into it, and it runs all the stuff, and then it just outputs calculations correct on the screen, and I'm like,
okay,
fuck you. Like, you set up a program that was like, I guess if the math is right, let me know that my calculations are correct. That has never once been the case in the history of anything ever. And I really like it, but it's really dumb.
Yeah.
That's what this is like. Anyway,
no, you're right. It's exactly that. Okay, well, then I guess in that case, the Doctor gets what's coming to him.
Yeah, I think it's kind of beautiful that he gets immediately crumpled and squashed in a pretty grotesque fleeting way.
There's a lot of squishing in this scene, because then we have Tetsuo's giant baby, who, like the bear, as he comes together, like he gets his arm cut off. We didn't mention that. But
we didn't even talk about the orbital laser.
Oh God, yeah. We're kind of like doing this movie in real time, like real time in terms of like how this story plays out unedited. So, all right, all kinds of body, all veins forming. We get this giant baby. Again, are we saying the teens of this world, have they not had a childhood? Like is
probably
this,
not.
Is there a little bit of that in all of this stuff, do you think?
And I definitely, yeah.
Like this sort of like uncontrolled, I can't control my body. I don't know how I'm feeling. I keep like having these visions of like there's weird children everywhere that look old, but they're also young, but there's toys, but they're going to kill me.
We hate this.
It's just this weird, I guess it's like, to be very lame, the loss of innocence thing or something like.
Well, and it is, yeah. I definitely could not sit and pinpoint, like, oh, obviously the giant baby thing means this. I don't know.
It's everything and nothing, maybe.
It makes me think of, like, that they're getting this godlike power that you can't handle, and it's like, I don't know, kind of like the birth of a god sort of a thing. So that's why it's like the baby, but I don't know. And it's so horrifying, and I really hate it. And I don't know. I'm just going to rip off this tiny Band-Aid, because for me personally, this is probably the worst moment in this movie. And I don't know if other people feel this way, but it's just like, it makes me feel so horrible. But his like little girlfriend shows up.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Ugh. And he like, they're still kind of friends, I guess. And their relationship in the graphic novels is much more complicated. Mm-hmm. But they're still like, they have this weird love relationship going on, and so she's kind of cool with him, even though most people aren't, because he's been really insanely violent. And he basically ends up like sucking her into his body when he like gets all big and I mean, he is amorphous and just growing insanely huge, and there's all kinds of cracks and crevices and etc. in there, and you actually like see her get crushed to death, and it's just one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, the first time I saw this movie, like, that just affected me so deeply. And I, like, dread it. And it's a short moment.
Yeah.
But there's something so horrifying about that part that I just, like, for some reason, that's one of the worst parts of the movie.
Yeah, that's like that. I always wonder why, because it's not that, like, I can't handle it, but it really does kind of overshadow anything that's going to come after, in a way that doesn't seem important to the story.
It's so personal, I guess, too. It's like this character. And I think something that makes it so scary is that he's like obviously lost control, and he's yelling about how he doesn't want this to be happening. Yeah. And it's like, ah! And it's just like, it's so fucking terrible and grotesque.
And it's like, she's the one that knew. She seemed to have the best sense of what's going to happen to him. Like when she's telling her like amoeba thing, she's like, he's still going to be the troubled kid. It's like, oh, well, and now you're like a victim of like his uncontrolled like power.
Well, and I guess like maybe
it's really too bad.
Maybe we're supposed to see that as like, he really can't help it at this point.
Right.
Like in a way, it's maybe almost supposed to make him seem sympathetic.
Yeah, I guess
because he's not very at all. And I think that's it's at that point in the movie, I guess, that you're kind of like, okay, I think he might have just completely lost his whole damn mind. And if this hadn't happened, he wouldn't be behaving like, well, obviously he wouldn't be behaving like this, but he doesn't want any of this stuff to be happening. And it paints him a little bit more in a sympathetic light because he's been such a jerk the whole time.
Yeah. And it also means he has to kind of go to that other universe because he can't be part of this one anymore because he's done so much damage. Whatever becomes of Neo Tokyo, he can't be part of it. And I feel like she's the last straw of that. Like he's kind of irredeemable, or he has no place in this reality anymore because he's killed like a complete innocent who is just maybe the one
trying to actually help him.
Yeah, the one character who like maybe had a level head about the whole thing, or at least wanted the best version of things to play out. When they're gone, it's like, well, what could possibly go wrong next? But it's like, well, they need to take him away to a orb of light. And then through this, I guess because it's one of those things where it's just been done so many times since. Some of those flashback bits, I'm like, okay, let's go on. I get it. Like, they were kids, of course. Like, it's not done in a way that I haven't seen a bunch of times after, which makes me annoyed. Because I'm like, this was probably really effective if I was young and watching it the first time. All the little, like, kid bits. Because I think we even, at least it's this in the book, we get last names of some characters that we didn't know yet. We kind of like, oh, we're finally seeing them, but it's all too late now in a way. It's good, but it's also been ripped off so many times.
Yeah, I can understand that because I feel like it was effectively done because it doesn't spend that much time on it.
No, yeah, it kind of is
and
moving
only
through
that
all this very quickly.
Like, when I watch this, and that's why I like that he's not in it at all. I'm like, I want to know more about Akira, but I'm glad we don't get him because it wouldn't be satisfying, and I don't want it. And I'll reserve final judgment for when I do finally read the graphic novels because I know he's in there, but that's something that just makes him inherently compelling and is well done. Mm-hmm. And I like the only real thing you see in the flashback with him is that he's kind of there when the kids are there. Like, he doesn't say anything. They don't do anything together, really. There's one scene where the little business boy that we were talking about earlier, and he's a child at this flashback, and he's going into one of the rooms, and it turns out to be Akira's room, and he's all, like, hooked up on machines and stuff, and then he just, like, sits up and looks at him, and that's, like, the whole thing. And I'm like, I like that. That's, like, all I needed to know. Like, they know each other.
Right.
And they clearly had some kind of important relationship. But, like, we don't need to see any more than that. And you don't. And I think that is a nice way to handle stuff like that. Like, you don't need to be like, and then Akira was important to me because he, like, taught me the way of the world. It's like, no, he didn't. Like, Who cares? I don't need to know what happened. It's more compelling in a way.
Yeah, we also get Kaneda and Tetsuo's kind of like little origin story at the drinking fountain where he has, like, the little kind of... I don't know, Voltron toy or something he hands him.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah.
But I do like that. There's one little clip you see of them, too, where Kennedy is teaching Tetsuo, like, how to drive motorcycles, basically. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is all I really need to know. Like, you guys had a good relationship. This is a really tragic ending to that, but that it was built on something. And I really don't need to know the specifics beyond that.
Yeah.
I can extrapolate enough to know... Like, he looked out for you while you guys were the orphanage together. Of course, you have a bond, like a pretty deep bond. Mm-hmm. And it is kind of tragic that at the very end, when Tetsuo is getting sucked into the light thing or whatever, he's the whole time he's transforming like this, he wants Kaneda to help him. And in a way, you're like, this is so annoying because you were so mad at him about it. But then you just kind of realize, like, okay, maybe you're getting it now and you're seeing the reality of your situation. And that sucks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we get that, and then we get the kid adult man boy who gets hit by the bike originally. What does he say? I don't know. It's just kind of a sad little line where the girl little person adult thing person. Just don't know what they are.
What are they?
What I'm saying. She warns him if he goes in, he, like, can't come back or something, but he wants to help him. There's always, like, I have, like, this weird sentimental thing with, like, people passing, especially in cartoons. I don't know. Did I talk about Care Bears, my relationship with the Care Bears universe?
No, but please feel permitted at this time.
It's like a Narnia thing, basically. It's like, well, you can pass through the wardrobe, but it's kind of like a doorway into imagination. And once you get to a certain age, like, there's no going back.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of echoes of that. It's like this movie has a little bit of that in this moment because it's this white orb, and, like, cartooning, when it gives you just white space, it's just technically paper. And that's a thing that, like, other movies can't do. You're like, we're just looking at a blank sheet of white paper, which is kind of weird void in its own way. So it's like the orb's coming, they're figuring out what to do. They're like, we're going to help them. It's just so kind of quiet in a way as it's slowly taking things over. So I just kind of get really sentimental in this moment where characters are making these final decisions to, like, cross over in it. And you can never come back type of thing. Cartoon feelings right there.
We got him.
So, and now I fell asleep at the very end. So what happens after this?
We're going to have to get that looked at.
I know it all shrinks down and then
You know what?
Kanata holds the singularity, right?
Yeah, and then it's a little, honestly, you're right. I mean, it's a little anticlimactic at the end once we get through no, that sounds ridiculous. Cut that out, actually, because that's so stupid.
So the episode's getting a little anticlimactic.
It's like the least anticlimactic movie that's ever been made, and I would like to publicly flagellate myself in apologies. It's just like the downturn at the end is like kind of is fine. Like, but it's like, do any of us really care what happens to them after that? Not really.
He lost his better half. So
true.
Is his bike? Where's his bike?
No, his bike, I'm pretty sure is gone. Jesus. I'm pretty sure because he wrote it in there.
Right.
And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gone. But he's got his GF and he's got the boy that we met briefly earlier, who I don't know his name, and so it's like,
yeah, an iconic character.
Okay, I'm pretty sure his bike is like in the ruins in there. I don't know. Yeah, they're just kind of like, we're gonna go on like that. It definitely has that.
Oh wow, I forgot.
Crazy
the girlfriend is not K.
Oh yeah,
I forgot.
No, that was a
her.
Different girl. Another K name though.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah. So 2 women characters. Great job.
Yeah.
But yeah, they basically literally just like ride off into the sunset. So maybe they do get his bike back. But,
I mean, there's a lot of bikes to be had.
I know. I'm like, did they? Anyway, they're fine. I think they're like, okay, disaster happened. Let's go rebuild. You can see that they ride off into buildings that are still standing. So
yeah,
there's some, they're not in a barren wasteland. And then we get that really cool black and white animation I mentioned earlier that's like going into this new universe or whatever, and you hear Tetsuo's voice.
Yeah.
And then roll credits.
Yeah.
End film. Are you asleep? Please respond.
I think I woke back up for the credits because I'm respectful of the animators involved in the process.
But I want to know who did it.
Like we were saying something about how it's not a hero's journey, but it is a weird like inversion of a type of hero's journey in that I feel like we've seen stories like, what's a movie that's like this chronicle, like about the weird villain superhero kid, the shaky cam.
Oh,
like,
God.
do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of teen stories like this since 89.
One might say too many.
Yeah. So in a way, it's kind of become its own shitty hero's journey type of format.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. And I also think like the shitty teen villain is a really easy trope for people to use when making a teen film, and the protagonist is some good-hearted like young buck or whatever, like
right.
Nice kid. And then the bad guy's like, like I'm an angry teen and I'm a bad guy. But it's also much more shallow.
Right.
I'm trying to think of an example now, and of course I cannot think of one because
just trust
us. Chronicle.
A movie I barely remember, but for some reason that one came into my mind.
Like, does anyone know what Chronicle is?
No, that movie is lost to time.
Well, this feels like backtracking. Maybe we can turn this into a resolution of some kind. But you mentioned this just like 5 minutes ago. One thing that I really love about this movie is that when stuff is getting blown up, it is like completely silent.
Oh, yeah, true.
And who has the guts? No pun intended, I guess. This is a very gutsy movie.
Who has the guts out and then puts them back in?
Guts-ish movie. Who, I dare say, has the guts to do that in this day and age? And I guess there are not a lot of movies where I'm like, oh yeah, totally, they're going for the Akira thing.
Well, you know what it makes me think of in Star Wars time? Last Jedi, Rian Johnson does when they like hyperdrive through the ship.
Which is the
silent.
Only cool part of that movie. Sorry, I didn't really care for that movie very much.
But it's the same move that you're talking about.
Yeah, and it kicked ass. That part was so awesome. I'm like, was it this movie I'm thinking of? There was a movie I watched recently about space where they also like had the space parts, didn't have sound.
Gravity, maybe. I don't know. Well, no. Gravity's very loud.
It was Interstellar.
Oh, yeah.
Neil had Interstellar on the other day.
Oh, right. Like when they're docking.
And
it's just like dead
and I was
silent.
like, this is actually nice. I don't think that movie is like anything super great, but it's very entertaining for what it is.
Yeah, it's got some great scenes.
And it's well made and it's really beautiful, the space parts. So when they give it room to breathe, that is so nice. And it's still not, there is something I think that makes it more scary when you see these giant, orbs of light just evaporating the city, and like huge buildings are just crumbling away in them. And it's happening kind of slowly.
Yeah.
And there's no sound, like no music happening. It almost feels respectful. Like it's like,
yeah,
this is what it is. Like, look at it.
We're not going to flavor it with like,
because it's way too easy. I think everyone who knows anything,
or we're not going to tell you how to feel with the music, right?
It's too easy to do that. And to tell you like, this is a triumphant part, or like, isn't this so scary? And like, it actually steps on it. If you're gonna die in a nuclear explosion, you're probably not gonna be hearing a cool ass jingle at the same time. Like, you're gonna be, if you have time, contemplating the horrific inevitability of your demise.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we should respect and maybe be more aware of. That's all. End podcast. Akira. Scary. Pretty gross.
Well, that's all for now. Check out our episode archive and other facts at cartoonfeelings.com. You can tweet at us or join us on Instagram. You'll find both of those at Feeling Cartoons.
And if you're enjoying the podcast, we would be super grateful if you would consider rating us on Apple Podcasts or sharing us with your friends. Or if you leave us a review and it's funny or nice.
Or both.
Or both. Bonus points if it's both. We will read it out loud on this very show.
Or tell us a little cartoon feeling story of your own in like
please,
under 50 words,
feelings.
please. Keep it brief.
And recommend us stuff. I mean, we got stuff, we got our stuff, but curious what y'all got.
Yeah, list some things.
Thank you.
There we go. We'll get better at that part too.
No, we won't.
Okay.
I have faith.
All right, that was a classic long ep.
I did not expect it to go that long.
I didn't either until I really